Hello. Whoa, I went live way quicker than I expected. Usually I got like an extra 2 seconds there to get the drink in. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I know it's been a hot minute since hot minute was probably before we first started streaming. That was an actual hot minute, but it has been a while. Week and a half? We took last week off from streaming. If you subscribe to Matty Slop, you know we were still posting over there. But man, good to be back. Good to be back in a little bit of a rhythm here. Last week with Crimson Desert, the Starfield DLC, and all the coverage and the meetings we had for our game and stuff. Just crazy week. So I appreciate y'all bearing with me. I did miss the streams, man. It was good hanging out with you guys. And I was feeling that disconnect. Needed to get back and reconnect here. What's going on, y'all? Grant, your first live here. Good to have you, man. Happy to have you on board. I'm a little out of sorts right now. I'm like trying to get everything together here. I'm like, what little parts of my document that I have up when I was streaming? It's like it's not as a rinse and repeat here. A Return of the King title card. Hey, I'll take it. Why not? You guys can call me the king. I'm not quite there yet, but you guys can call me that. That's cool. You know what's not the king is this fucking weather, dude. I swear. Like the weather, turning 30 does change how your brain works, because I swear I did not give a shit about the weather until I turned 30, and I was like, I need sun. I need warmth. I suddenly start to understand, pardon me, why so many people move south. Because I cannot stand the cold. Like I was out walking my dog for a little bit today, getting some exercise in, and I was just getting annoyed. I was like, dude, why is it's end of March now? Why is it still I'm wearing my thick bomber jacket? I wear a Starfield bomber jacket all the time. Probably the best press gift I ever got was that jacket, because I've worn it for 3 years straight now. But I was like, dude, like I am so tired of the cold. So again, I'm flirting with the idea of moving south. That's how I'm doing. How's everyone else doing? Maddie, have you been playing Fallout 4 on Switch too? Not really. I gave it a whirl. It passed the sniff test, did my little review, and then went back to Pacopia. Also, I'm still a little bit like, I don't know, like I'm a little bit, Fallout 4 and I, we'll get back together soon. But right now I'm a little upset about that situation. I was going to say angry, but angry is a strong term. Just still a little bit like, I don't want to play you right now. I'm upset with all the distress you caused me at the end of last year. So I will hold off for now. Did you hear about the Epic Games layoffs? Yes, I did. I did read the headlines. I have not read their blog post or anything, so I can't offer too many educated thoughts on what happened there. I saw it, and I was like, wow, man, like, even Fortnite. It doesn't matter where you work. What is job security? It's a shame. It's a real shame to see, though. And, again, I look at, like, that Battlefield 6, and I'm just like, this is why the industry, like, people look from the outside in and like, dude, it's so cooked, because it's like the highest of high level successes are just being mitigated endlessly. It's just frustrating. J Bay says you're annoyed by the heat. I get it, right? That's the other thing. I don't want to impulsively move, right? But I'm gonna really feel out my emotions this summer. If I'm just like, 90-degree weather, it's almost 100. And I'm actually kind of like deep underneath it thinking to myself, you know what? I'd rather this than the bitter cold. That's when I'll know it's time to move. What is Herman doing, bro? Akimbo, I did see the news as well. We have another PlayStation Studio shutdown. A lot of news broke. I don't know if it's like I got to move my stream time. Like maybe I need to stream in the evenings, although that would be like not great for my schedule. But I don't know. All this news like broke. Like I added a bunch of Xbox stories to our document today, and then I saw a PlayStation shut down another studio. I'm like, that's a Matty Slop. Like that's definitely shit I want to talk about. I don't know. It's such a fast moving industry. I really thought Matty Slop would be this answer to like just the immediate stuff I want to talk about. But there's on my list right now, what we've got today is we're going to recap the Todd Howard interviews. I guess I can make that into a MrMattyPlays video. Maybe I cut that so that we can focus on the Nvidia CEO stuff still, because they continue to lie there. Dragon's Dogma 2 finally getting DLC. I want to talk about that and the rumors surrounding that. I have a PlayStation story here about just the interesting updates they've had. PSSR 2.0, PS Portal, PS3 update, Netflix on PS3 going away, phasing out PSN. I'm like, something's going on there. And then now we have this new insider report on Xbox cutting Game Pass prices, teaming up with Netflix, what that looks like, and also learning that Asha Sharma did initiate the killing off of the "This is an Xbox" marketing tagline. So that's just that. Before we even get into Epic Games and PlayStation shutting down their studio, I'm like, dude, that's like 7 stories. How could I manage all of this into a stream? So yeah, it's a lot, man. What's going on, Charter Wolf? Good to see you, bro. Yeah, Halo campaign Evolve rumors. Crazy. Maddie, I need a Witcher check-in. Man, I was hoping no one would ask this. Okay. I just wrapped up the last book in the original saga. It was very mixed on Lady of the Lake. Loved everything else. Yeah, so I open with that because I have been a failure when it comes to reading this month. Like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I was on such a good roll. But really, the Requiem Platinum run is what started to take me out, because those extra hours in the night that would be spent reading went to that, and then it moved from that right into Pacopia. That's on me. But then I started to see rumors that this Witcher 3 DLC might be in, like, September, and I'm hoping the universe bails me out a little bit, because now it's too late. Now I can't finish all the books and do a full preview. I was like, damn, I fucked up. But then I saw it. I was like, maybe this might be great. Like, this is bad for everyone else, but for me specifically, this is great. So yeah, I'm still on Time of Contempt. And I mean, what I've read of it, I really like. But yeah, so far, I would say Blood of Elves was my least favorite. It was still great. Sword of Destiny was excellent. And then, of course, the first book kicks a ton of ass. Last Wish is so good. But yeah, man, I unfortunately failed on my reading goals. I was a little annoyed with myself because I was like, man, like, I felt the trade-off. I felt myself getting a lot of gaming time in and watching my hours rack up there, which is what was needed. Was Crimson Desert, Pacopia, a bunch of other stuff I wanted to review and do impressions on, that sort of stuff. So I knew I had to make the trade-off, but I was hoping I could have my cake and eat it too. So yeah, gives me a little more time if the expansion comes out later in the year. But that's the book update. Glad to hear, though, that you loved pretty much everything else, though. I'll keep my open mind for Lady of the Lake. Still excited to go through all of it. That could easily be a Brandon Sanderson fanboy. I promise. TV show coming and everything. I do like what I've read of Sanderson. I read Way of Kings. I thought that was great. And then I got a little bit into his second book. But I've talked about this before. My friends and I did a book club, and we kind of turned into homework, which was a mistake. Like, you know, X amount of pages, like every day, reporting in. Like, we tried to make it official so that we'd be locked into it. But then all my friends fell off, and we were all like bickering at each other because we were like, bro, what the fuck? Why aren't you reading? Like, what? I just read so much. Like, I could have been doing X, Y, and Z, but like, you're not reading. Now we can't do our book club meetups. And it was just like, everyone just tapped out. I was like, this is what I'm talking about, bro. I was like, I can't do anything with you guys. I was like, fuck you guys. I'm going to go read something else. And so here I am. Uncharted Wolf, Maddie, were you able to contact the other mods and get them in Discord group? I haven't checked in with Josh on that yet. I know he made a group, but I have not been able to check in on that sort of stuff. Like I said, this last week was killer busy, so I'm catching up on everything today. So yeah, just a lot. Everything's slipping through the cracks. Has Todd explained the difference between Creation Engine 2 and 3? Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's still up to interpretation. But I think I've got the answer. Turtle, I do not do audiobooks. I find myself, I don't pay as close attention to it. I don't comprehend as well when I'm listening, because usually when I'm listening, it's a passive thing and I'm doing something else. And I'm like I've learned, I'm a dude. One track mind. I'm a dude. And so for me, I can multitask really well. Like, I think that's what I'm doing right now. But doing that all the time, I think, is really bad for your brain. And I tried to 2 birds, 1 stone everything. And I just realized, like, I'm not built for audiobooks. Even if I'm like on a walk, I'll like look at the trees and think of other stuff, and I'll just get distracted and not pay as close attention to the book. Unless the book is like locked the fuck in. Like, I did a little bit of audiobooking for, Golden Sun in the Red Rising trilogy. What an incredible book. And that was a great listen. That had me dialed in, but that book's God tier. So there's levels to this shit. Nothing has been said in the group chat. Don't worry. We're both scared to break the ice. I'll break the ice. Don't worry. That's my job. On books, I started Dune Messiah with the movie coming out. I'm actually stunned that they'll even try to adapt it because it feels like the audience eating up the films might reject how cerebral it is. Yeah, I don't know much about Dune at all. I am super out on Dune. Not like negatively, but like I don't know anything about the movies, never read the books. And I don't say this disrespectfully when I say I don't really care, but like I just never felt the calling. So it's just one of those things where I like one of these days. It's not super high priority. Like my friend was like, watch this clip. I swear you'll be sold on it. It was some fight clip from the second movie. And I just like felt nothing. So it feels like you need a lot of narrative context for it. So I want to give it a try, one of these days, but it's not high priority for me. I wanted to read the Dragon Age books, comrade, leading into Veilguard. Knowing how Veilguard resonated with me, I'm kind of glad I didn't go all in like that. I wanted to be all up on the lore because I was like, oh, this is it. Like high investment. I'm sure this game will be great. Life took over. I was traveling a lot that year, so I didn't get to it. And I wasn't making reading as much of a priority as I am like this year. So like I think newer Matty would have actually got the job done, especially because there's less books to churn through compared to something like The Witcher. But yeah, I'm glad that didn't end up going that way for me. And I ended up just donating those books that I had in my collection because Veilguard's ending, like final ending epilogue teaser really put a foul taste in my mouth when I learned about that. And it kind of started to undo. I just pretend Dragon Age Origins exists. That's my coping mechanism. I don't try to oversell Veilguard, but like, because I know a lot of people turn into a political talking point. I'm not even talking about that. Just like I'm talking as a fan of the lore and the great writing BioWare did. I just kind of disassociate and just I'm like, it's just Origins to me. It's just Origins. That's especially after interviewing Mark Darr, and he was just like, yeah, it was supposed to be a one-off. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. That's how I'm going to treat it. Because I think if they ever go back to Dragon Age, they are rebooting it. I do not see a world where they are like, let's pick up where we left off. They just can't. They can't. If they rebooted and said we're going back to like the very beginning and we're rethinking things and it's like gritty, like truly gritty, and I couldn't even imagine them doing that. But if they did do that, that would be the only way I think you could signal some attention for that game. If it's just, again, continuing Dragon Age, I mean, I don't know. Best of luck to them. But right now, Mass Effect's the focus for BioWare. And I'm trying to be optimistic about that because I feel like Mass Effect is more in the pocket of what they're comfortable making. Dragon Age always felt like it was molding to what BioWare was. Mass Effect is what BioWare is, if that makes sense. The way the dialogue works, kind of a set character in Shepard or Ryder. That mixture of player agency, but also a directed story. Action-based gameplay, like these things are a little bit more, they work better with BioWare. So I have a little more optimism for knowing all of this and experiencing all of their games, except never finishing Anthem. You'll have to pardon me on that one. I feel like Mass Effect could be shaping up better, but it's all going to come down to the writing. It's all going to come down to the writing. We'll see. I am looking into The Expanse, Rogers. Do not worry. Your boy's all over that. Anything that looks like the next Mass Effect, I am all over. Between The Expanse, Osiris Reborn, and Exodus. Exodus looks great, too. They showed gameplay for that. It looks awesome. It's weird Sony backed a hardcore game like Marathon. I don't think so. They want... They know. I mean, in a lot, it's funny because like in a lot of ways, Helldivers is also, I put it in quotes, so don't fucking clip me here, like hardcore. By that I mean like the game can be mega punishing. I think developers and publishers are smart to lean into hardcore games. We'll actually talk about this a little bit with these Todd Howard interviews on how like the most popular games are like your Elden Rings, your Baldur's Gates. Like these are selling tens of millions of copies. These are doing extremely well and gaining a sense of virality that very few games do. And I think that's backed by the hardcore kind of signal boosting it and being like, get into this. This is so unique. This is so different. And I think Sony would get that for sure. So I don't think it's crazy that they backed a game like Marathon. Marathon selling just over 1 million copies, though. It's good in any other instance, but I don't think that's good for Sony if what they've done recently is anything to go by. They want the recurring revenue. They want more players. And I don't think 1.2, I think it was estimated, million copies is going to do the trick here. So, I think Sony backing a hardcore game is smart, and I think we should encourage it. We don't want anyone to streamline things, This is why I always signaled that I like that Xbox would publish games less traditional. I have my many issues with games like South of Midnight, but I'm happy they publish those types of games, less traditional games, because you never know what's going to pop off. You never know what's going to resonate. So, yeah, never a problem if they back something more hardcore like that. And I also don't think we anticipated Marathon to be more hardcore, which, again, I respect that Bungie went in that direction. Thought that was cool to see. Trying to get my notes up for there we go. Todd Howard interview notes. That'll be a lot of listening, talking, that sort of stuff. You put 1,000 hours into Helldivers 2. Wow. Yeah, I'm just not as much of a multiplayer guy where like my hours on multiplayer games outside of some of the boomer bust moments for me were like very limited. Like I put a lot of hours at least for me in multiplayer, like almost 100 hours into Marvel Rivals. Like, and that was within like the month it came out. Like I just went all in on that shit. That was so much fun. So that really worked for me. Cause it's such a perfect mix, like hero shooter with actual cool heroes and like just great maps, great hero kits. Some of them kind of a little bit redundant, like clearly ripping on Overwatch, but I'm such a Marvel fanboy that I'm like, this is cool. So yeah, like for me, those games will hit right. There's another multiplayer game that, what am I trying to remember? It's so few and far between for me. So like even something like Helldivers 2, I did not log a shit ton of hours into, but it is fun. It was fun going back to that for the Xbox release and messing around with that. And I was a little bit whelmed by the, it's not the right term. I was a little bit underwhelmed by the Halo ODST stuff because it was just skins. And I'm like, oh man, they could have like really done some cool shit with the maps and the enemies and done like a full Halo collab. But we'll take it, I guess. Still really cool though. Jack, you say you can't get into multiplayer gaming because it's too unpredictable. For me, it's I like a story. I think I've just realized that's what I value more than anything is like I want characters and universes and lore and that sort of stuff and seeing how much of that I can gobble up. That's basically what keeps me away from multiplayer because multiplayer is always surface level stories and characters. Oh yeah, I did. You know what? I did see the brand new day trailer for Spider-Man. What did I think of it, Charles? Ryan Charles? I think I'm saying your name right. Yeah, it's funny because I am excited because it's Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I will also admit though, I did not feel much watching the trailer. Like I think about each moment I watched the new Spider-Man trailer. Like obviously, Homecoming was this moment of like it's a new era, a new Spider-Man. This is so interesting. I'm so excited. And then the follow-up was like, okay, more of that. Let's see what they do now that they're familiar and they know the pros and cons of this. Funny enough, I think that was like the worst movie they did, Far From Home. At least for me, just kind of forgettable, like outside of the setting. Then No Way Home, I mean, we know that is the one. At least for me, that is the one. The nostalgia throughout all of that, mixed with the new era. Beautiful movie. I love that movie. And then this new one is kind of like street level Spider-Man. And I like that. It seems like it's harkening back to Spider-Man 2. Like, why am I Spider-Man? You know, organic webs being on and off, although it's evolving those ideas much more so. And it seems like a lot of it is leaning on like how good the story will be on how I feel about this movie, just because, again, like the last movie had so much nostalgia in it. It was like a guaranteed love fest for me. But this new movie is like, okay, you're like, Tom's got spider eyes and he's going from like techie Spider-Man to like organic webs and he's evolving. And I feel like I can see this sort of great power, great responsibility to protect MJ. I got to leave her behind shit building up here. So it's like I feel a lot of familiarity with the Raimi Spider-Man 2 movie in this one, which is great because that's one of my favorite movies ever. But it's also, again, extremely familiar. So there's a lot of weird in this new trailer. There's a lot that I like about it. Again, like the whole ninja squaring off. People are saying that shot was edited. I don't know if there's any truth to that. But also that with the organic webs, like there's some weirder elements where I'm like, okay, what are they doing here? But I'm also seeing echoes of prior Spider-Man stuff where I'm like, okay, is this going to just be like running it back a little bit? But the views on it are great. And so I'll be keen to see how people like really resonate with it when it comes out, especially, for me, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. So I will be seeing it day one, no matter what, no doubt. For Retro Rebound, I will be dropping a shit ton of Spider-Man content as we once did all the time. But now we've ran through a lot of Spider-Man games. And so we kind of had to put that on the back burner until more Spider-Man stuff started to pick up. So that'll be a really fun time no matter what. But I'm excited to see like more trailers, get more insight on it, because I feel like that first trailer was only scratching the surface. I'm excited by like my knowledge of Spider-Man being great, but I'm not fully like excited by everything I saw, if that makes sense. I wouldn't even call it formulaic, Deus. I wouldn't call it formulaic. I can see how you get there. But because I like Spider-Man's my hero, straight up. Like I'm a New Yorker, dude. Like I fucking like dream about looking up and seeing him web swinging through the streets. Like that's everything. Like I fucking love Spider-Man. Just this new trailer again was kind of like flat is not the right word. I just need to see more. It's like, okay, I'm going to see this, no doubt. But like, it wasn't like anything got me out of my seat. It's like, oh, okay, there's Scorpion. Okay. Like Peter, great power, great responsibility. Is he, won't he with MJ, what he wants versus what the world needs. Like, but at the same time, they held off on this movie for so long because Tom Holland was like, we need some sort of like story that we can buy into, and this was the one that they bought into. So the pressure's on the narrative to be great, I think. So yeah. I think you overreacted about Einanzer's comment about Bethesda responding to it. Criticism can be heard. It's not what people do with Starfield. They like to hate it. Well, thank you for writing in about this. I'm always happy to talk about things like this and be confronted by the audience. I don't think it was an overreaction. I didn't read the comments for that video yet, but I don't know if people agreed with it or not. But for me, at least, Bethesda has tried to shield themselves from Starfield's criticism while also listening to it at the same time. By that, I mean, like, they will acknowledge the things that have been said about Starfield. Like, yeah, people think it's boring, but they kind of deflect it in a way where it doesn't feel like it's actually being heard. And when we start to hear these kind of cope level excuses like Einanzer saying people just weren't ready for Starfield, it's like, that could not be further from the truth, man. People were extremely ready for a Bethesda game because we've been ready for their genre-defining open-world games since 2003, really, and even earlier in that with Daggerfall. So I don't think that I was really overreacting to something that's been a repeat offense, if you want to call it that. Emil Pagliarulo tried to diffuse Starfield criticism. And it was the same thing. Like, I'm not trying to rub mud in your eye, but also this is like, we're extremely proud of Shattered Space. I'm like, it's your worst reviewed product. You just can't say that. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not saying you got to put down your staff, but you cannot just look at your worst reviewed product and be like, we're really proud of this. I don't agree with that personally. And then Todd kind of, will they, won't they, with the buggy, like, oh, is that what would have fixed Shattered Space? I'm like, do you guys know what the problem was? So I respect that you will come here and call me out. So like, please, I always encourage my audience to like take me to task if you disagree, because I think these conversations are more interesting than you all just fucking hyping me up. But I don't think it was an overreaction. And I think, at least for me, dude, the benefit Bethesda has, although they probably don't feel this way, is that they've got an actual fan in me. I think most people who talk about Starfield and they see the comments like Einanzer had probably look at that and think like, oh, here we go, I'm going to dunk on Bethesda again. I don't make content to dunk on Bethesda. I try to take a rational conversational approach to these types of things. So when people tell me I'm overreacting, I'm like, dude, I spent a whole decade like underreacting. I'm just kind of going to a place where I think the response is normal. It's like, you're going to tell me, the player, that I wasn't ready for something that was technically disconnected in so many ways. It was great when it was going. Like I like Starfield a lot, but there were a lot of problems. And when those remain unheard and unaddressed, and by the way, conversation was pre-Free Lanes update. That's a problem. So yeah, like I appreciate this though, but that would be my defense of sort of how I feel about what Einanzer had to say on Starfield. And again, I don't think any criticism the game's got has been unfair. But definitely Starfield was a moment. I think the reason people think Starfield's overhated is it was a moment where a lot of people who've been critical about Bethesda for a while, like 76, you could kind of write off a little bit because, oh, it's an online game. They're not known for live service stuff. Of course, there's going to be a failure. Like there was a level of that sort of quiet acceptance. But when they go back to their traditional style game and it was feeling outdated in a lot of ways for a lot of players, I feel like it was that moment for a lot of people who've been critical of Bethesda but felt they weren't being heard to just tee the fuck off on them. And given the volume of video essays that came out following Starfield's release, I hope Bethesda does not victimize themselves too much. I'm sure there's a level of like, geez, okay, we get it. We can only do so much. But a lot of people felt very validated with Starfield is how I would describe it. You're going to make Todd angry and he's going to release Elder Scrolls 6 on the Sega Dreamcast in retaliation. I don't know. Like, I think if I've only said one thing that would piss Todd off, it would probably be that I said I was disgusted by his involvement with DLSS 5. Like, I didn't mean to make it, I don't want it to sound personal, but it's more like, dude, as a huge fan, I expect better of you. Otherwise, though, I don't know. Bethesda's always been complimentary of my fair criticism. So there's also that. At least the devs that I've spoken to. I don't know how the rest of their team feels. What's the chance Wolverine, Fable, and GTA all hit 90 on Metacritic? By the way, I haven't even said thank you to all these super chats. Thank you for supporting the streams. Thank you for super chatting. Sorry, I was just kind of getting casual with the conversation. What's the chance Wolverine, Fable, and GTA 6 all hit 90 on Metacritic? I feel like GTA, you gotta lock it in. I feel like that's got to be up there. Wolverine's a little bit of a coin toss. We heard some like some scary stuff in development. Directors changing, creative directors changing in and out. That's a little bit creepy. Never is a good feeling there. But it gets the PlayStation buff. Let's be honest with ourselves. So there's that. It gets the Marvel buff. Let's be honest with ourselves. There's that. And also it gets the unconventional buff because it's a gory Marvel game. So there's that too. So throw that all in the mix and it's like, okay, maybe we're cooking a little 90, probably high 80s. Fable's the riskiest one because it's Xbox. And it's also like it's an open world racing team doing an open world RPG. But Xbox has not cracked that list, man. But I hope this is the year they do. If any game is going to do it, it's going to be Fable, right? It was supposed to be Starfield. It wasn't. So if any game is going to be in that game of the year race, it's going to be Fable. 90 though. You're asking the wrong guy because for me, I am more critical of some of the things I saw with, what's it called? With Fable than others. Like I'm a little bit iffy on the lack of morality and then being like, oh, it's nuance. I'm like, it's not quite how it works in Fable. But that's me being actually. So yeah, like I'll give it to GTA. I could see a little Wolverine. Fable, I think can do it too. They all have a high chance of doing it. 90's tough to crack though. Like you have to think of like Expedition was like low 90s. So you have to be like purely excellent top to bottom. And things like GTA, I think you can look at that and be like, that's probably a guaranteed mark of quality. Wolverine and Fable less so. I think high 80s for those. Matty, I know you say I just appreciate the support because you're a classy fucking dude, but what's better, Patreon or channel subscription? You're right. You kind of robbed me of my default, man. Channel subscription. Patreon needs work. Do the channel subscription. If you're genuinely intent on supporting, yeah, that is. I don't think I make less money that way, but I think for you value, like, and I'm not saying that so that you actually go to Patreon. Jesus Christmas. Please do the channel though, because I have not touched up the Patreon in a long while. It's just kind of dead over there right now. So channel is more active. You get stream perks. I'm working with artists to get more icons. We have art that's ready for Matty Slop to kind of up the presentation. Like we're investing in that. So channel subscription's more worth your dollar right now. Why can't they just say it wasn't well received? Well, Todd always deflects in every interview I have seen. I'm trying to think. I think there's acknowledgement of parts of it. Like, on the whole, I would not call Starfield a bad game. I know many of you in chat would. I don't think Bethesda has to get on their hands and knees and be like, we're so sorry. They have nothing to apologize for Starfield, in my opinion. I didn't think it was that fucking bad. I thought it was a good game in a lot of ways. But I think they've acknowledged it in parts. Same thing with Fallout 4. Eventually, Todd was like, yeah, the dialogue system was really poorly received. And yeah, we could have done better with this. And yeah, we could have done better with that. But I think Todd is someone who's like, he takes in so much feedback day to day. I'm sure it takes years for things to have those breakthrough moments. Like, will he one day have a breakthrough moment on loot? That's what I'm wondering. That's one of my main questions I'd love to ask him. Is like, hey, dude, the obsession, like now I'm seeing with Starfield, like X-Tech sells. And I'm like, okay, here comes the regurgitating loot, the legendary grind. Do you guys ever want to go back to what Skyrim used to do? That sort of stuff. And I feel like eventually he'll have that breakthrough moment where he'll put a more definitive stamp on how he feels about things. Certainly he takes his time with that. But I don't think they have to like be like, oh guys, yeah, we know y'all hate it. Like, because I don't think it was that. They do have a lot of players for that game. And if the DLC reception has been anything to go by, people are kind of like, okay, let's see what this is all about. All right, couple more super chats and then we'll get started on the stream. Like the actual news and whatnot. Todd gave an interview to Mortismo. Are you blacklisted? No, I'm not blacklisted. At least not to my knowledge. But, I wasn't invited to this event probably because if I were to interview Todd, I again, in that case, I'm assuming, I don't know for sure. But if this was an opportunity that was presented to me, I probably would have said no because I'm not going to talk to Todd for 20 minutes. Not because I'm above it. Obviously, 20 minutes of Todd is 20 minutes of Todd. I don't blame IGN or Mortismo for taking those interviews. But in my case, like, you all know, I have like a million loaded questions that I want to ask. And I'm sure even after Bethesda PR would filter through those questions and be like, not this, not this, not that, I'd still have like 20 questions that I could not ask in a 20-minute window. It's kind of similar to the conversation I had about Jez Corden's 13-minute interview with Microsoft and its leadership. Like, I don't blame him for taking that opportunity. I just don't know if you get very valuable intel for your audience out of that. So if I were include, I think Bethesda knows my ambitions and my intent, and like a 20-minute Todd Howard interview, especially after the first conversation we had, we have to have that talk about like what makes it better. I don't think it would make sense. And also, given I thought the people who went to Bethesda Game Studios went hands-on with stuff, but they don't seem to have. I think they saw more about the creations and some 76 related stuff, but I mean, I think Bethesda knows me well. That does not sound like a type of thing that, like, I want to see the future of Starfield, but I could do that from the comfort of my own home, and I'm not a big 76 guy. I don't cover 76 a shit ton. So yeah, like, it makes sense. Let Maddie stay home. Like, don't include me. I don't blame them. If that was their decision, I don't know for sure. So no, I don't think I'm blacklisted. Again, I appreciate when people kind of put me forward for these opportunities, but keep in mind, there's a lot of other creators who need to eat too. It's not just about me. I shouldn't be number one on their list. They should be exploring all opportunities to kind of reach different audiences. For me, I'm like clearly the representative of one of the representatives, I should say, of like a hardcore BGS person. And when it's time for that talk and Bethesda thinks it's worthwhile, maybe they'll hit me up or maybe they'll go to someone else. I thought Mortismo's interview was great. I thought he made the most of his 20 minutes. Thought IGN did a great job. We'll talk about that. So yeah. Do I think also there is a level of like Bethesda knows I have a lot of more hard-nosed questions, like what happened to Fallout 4 Anniversary? What happened with Shattered Space? Like, I'm not saying that Mortismo or IGN wouldn't ask those. I'm sure they would. But I'm sure Bethesda wants to get to a spot where if they were to talk to me about this stuff, that there would be a little bit easier defense for them, or time, forgiveness, that sort of stuff. So yeah, that'd be my answer to some of that. But yeah, I don't want us to put other people down for getting opportunities thinking I deserve them over them, because that's certainly not the case. People like Mortismo should definitely get ops like that. And it was awesome to see him get that. And to see Todd ask him questions about his own channel, I thought that was really cool. So yeah, like, let's not put I don't think you were trying to put other people down, Deos, but like, let's not veer into that category, because they should get those opportunities too. That said, I would love to one day visit BGS. That is a dream of mine. But I have faith that one day that'll happen. Maddie, imagine COG in DLSS 5. Delicious. I'm curious what COG would look like in DLSS 5. My man's already beautiful. Hi, Maddie. Second live stream here. Imagine Elder Scrolls 6 reveal this Thursday. I know likely not happening, but imagine a shadow reveal. Oh, I mean, I love the dreaming, and I definitely would love for this to happen. But yeah, if you're thinking that the partner preview event's going to have anything for Elder Scrolls 6, you got to think big moments for that. So like at best, summer showcase. Like kind of leave it there. That's what I would suggest to you. But I love the energy, but definitely if you don't want to get hurt in the process, definitely don't put up your hopes that it's going to be like, what's it called? That it'll be here at this Thursday event. I'm still on Patreon. I never looked at it though. Just genuine longtime fan. Excited for your thoughts on Crimson Desert months from now. Months indeed. Yeah, it's going to be a while, but I'll keep chipping through it, especially with the quality of life updates. It's been good to see them patching it. Before you went live, Sony shut down Blundell's studio and pulled out of mobile. Beyond PC, it looks like they're just going back to console games. Yep, they're just literally undoing everything Herman Hulst did. That's literally what's happening. And like, to me, cool. Herman Hulst did a fucking awful job. So I'm good with that. Maddie, love your... Well, thank you for these super chats, guys. These are crazy. Love your vibes and attitude. Always keep it real and positive. Keep it up, mate. I love Retro Rewind. Would you consider doing like a monthly movie, TV show update on Maddie Slop? Maybe combine it with a reading update. I've thought about that. I've also thought about, I think my mistake with Retro Rewind, that something that Locke and I didn't really think about when we launched it, is that we kind of didn't need to make a new channel to do what Retro Rewind wanted to do. I think we needed to think a little bit smaller, as in like Call Sheet, our main show, could have been a thing we did on Retro Rebound. And we could have done it in a more condensed format and done like one retro movie a week to build out what retro is. And I think that would have worked well with a pre-established audience better than trying to build a whole new thing, which, you know, Maddie Slop has been growing really fast, but that's kind of in this divide of like games and whatnot. But given that Retro Rebound had this synchronization of like TV, movies, and games, and like we would time our gaming content with that, adding a movie into that mix made a lot more sense. That's where my head's at. I don't know if I want to add movie, like maybe certain game related movie reviews would show up on Maddie Slop. You can expect that. Cause I kind of talked about that a bit with, we did Borderlands on Retro Rewind as well. Yeah, no, I did like Borderlands updates on MrMattyPlays. Sorry, I got it mixed up. But that's where my head's at. Is I would like to throw like I have a dream of like an OG anime review. Like I've been watching Ghost in the Shell, and I really want to like talk about that in full in a retrospective format. One problem is obviously trying to get all the content, making it visible. But the other thing is like, where would I post that? And I think Retro Rebound makes sense for that. But would people want to see like an anime review? I've talked about Jay's reviews. I love his channel, and he does a mixture of like games, but also he'll talk about like, he did a bunch of TMNT 03 retrospectives that were awesome. That's like one of my favorite shows growing up. So yeah, thank you for the thoughts on this. Really appreciate it. But that's how I kind of think about movie, TV content, and that sort of stuff. I want to say Einon Zur works independently from Bethesda. What he says doesn't automatically reflect the studio. If a dev says that, that's okay. I understand. I agree. I understand what you're saying here. But with Einon Zur, and he does all of Bethesda stuff. Like he's doing Elder Scrolls 6. He's done everything for them since, well, you could say Fallout 3, but then Jeremy Soule did Skyrim soundtrack. So everything since Skyrim, he has been a part of. And so I get the splitting of hairs here, but at a certain point, I feel like we're intentionally avoiding, like he works on their games and he is a part of that process. Not maybe as a developer traditional, like working an engine, but he is a part of that creative process. And it is a third mark on like someone working on Starfield and having a similar response. And I get it. I think what you're saying is totally fair. And that is something I'll consider moving forward. But to me, it's a more collective what I was framing it as in that video, at least, was a collective conversation of like, here's Emil, here's Todd, here's Einon, and this keeps happening. Let's talk about it. But if you view it as me singling out Einon, I get how you come to that conclusion. And I don't want to single people out. That's not what I try to do. Not everything has to match the popular opinion. Always appreciate you giving an honest perspective. Thank you. I try. Any chance of Fallout 3 this Thursday? No. I think later in the year, if anything. Thoughts on Osiris Reborn? Very excited. Think will we be seeing more soon? I don't know. They've been talking about it a lot. I think we'll be seeing more soon, but I'm excited. What if Xbox's head was Todd instead of Asha? I don't know if I like that. I think Todd's more of a dev than an exec, but he's been kind of put in the exec role. So I wouldn't like that. All right, actually last super chat, and then we'll get into the news here. Thank you guys so much for supporting these streams. And thank you for showing up, Vanilla. Appreciate seeing you here again. Rest well. Federico, thank you. What's up, Maddie? Hope everything is great. I know it's a bit late, but if you like the Red Rising series, you should try Sun Eater series. It's incredible. For me, better than Red Rising. You're not the first person to say this exact recommendation. I like this. All right, now that I've heard multiple people say this exact thing, I'll check it out. I got a reading list, and once I'm done with Witcher, I think I'm gonna want to read some sci-fi stuff, and I think I want to finish Red Rising, but this will be on my list. This will be like a long stretch goal for me. All right, guys, thank you again. This is awesome. Seeing over 700 of you here, supporting what we're doing. Super chats are super appreciated, make a huge difference. So, and just having you hang out and do this is also super appreciated. Let's get some Matty Slop on the docket here. This first story is about Todd Howard. We're going through a couple of interviews here. We're looking at IGN's interview. We're going to break this down into chunks. And then we're looking at Mortismo Gaming's interview, and we're going to break that down into chunks. This is definitely going to be a long conversation, no doubt about it. So we're going to sit down. We're going to go through it piece by piece. I've made the timestamps here on my note sheet, so we should be able to kind of highlight reel it. Because, again, I try not to, when I have other people's content on screen, I don't want to remove the reason you have to watch their content. I don't want to take from them. But what we're going to do is, again, look at parts of IGN's interview, parts of Mortismo's interview. And Todd gave a suite of answers that I thought were really interesting. Everything from what I got here is how they're casting a wide technical net, some Creation Engine 2 issues that they ran into that are informing Creation Engine 3, and sort of what I'm taking away from that. Pricing criticism, a modular difficulty system, Bethesda on smaller games. Just a lot of interesting answers here from Todd. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with this interview from IGN, and we're going to focus on, in this first clip here, Bethesda's kind of tech stack and casting a wide net. So I want us all to hear what Todd has to say on that, and then I'll give some thoughts. So let's take a listen, shall we?
You know, we see that stuff really, really early.
Yeah.
And it's tricky for, we'll say, console manufacturers, wherever they are. They have to take a very long view of development when you sort of tape out on a chip, you know, how you call that timing and cost, and then what does it look like 5 or 10 years after that. So it's really, really tricky kind of thing to maneuver, both technically and business-wise, when anyone is making a system like that, where you're gonna lock it down. Our approach has always been, and because fortunately we've had such a PC audience, and we're doing it more and more going forward, which is to cast a wide net technically, to both take advantage of the very high end, but allow the game to scale down and handle. You look at handhelds now, you look at how popular those are becoming, and I think you're gonna see more of that in lower powered devices, lower powered where, say you're traveling and you wanna, underclock that thing in a certain way. We want our games to be able to handle that. So I think more than anything, when we look forward, we're less about, we are gonna make the game and tie it to this spec, which we would sometimes do in the past, so particularly in the 360 area per se, where you might be really constrained. Now they're powerful enough, and you're looking at those different scopes of things where instead of constraining ourselves, we're widening it. Does that make sense?
I really like this answer, because when you're Bethesda and you're casting a wide net, what does this mean? For me, the real takeaway with an answer like that is that I think Elder Scrolls 6 will run on lesser powerful hardware, which is interesting to think about a bit, because I think with the way Bethesda has described Elder Scrolls 6 in the past is they've kind of thought about it sort of like this: we have to wait for technology to get to a certain point. So a lot of us, myself included, we're starting to think a bit like Xbox just announced Project Helix. Is Elder Scrolls 6 only going to be on that? But you start to consider the slower adoption rate of these consoles, of this new bit of hardware, because it's getting more expensive. And not only is it getting more expensive, but then you're adding on potentially even more costs when you think of like what's happening with RAM, tariffs, the list goes on. These additives that make an already expensive piece of hardware even more pricey, right? So when there's a slower adoption rate to this new hardware, barring something like Nintendo, who I know some people were reacting to this story about Nintendo sort of cutting the amount of Switch 2 units they were about to ship by like 30%, but keep in mind that they also front loaded that because they were trying to cut off scalpers, which they successfully did. So I think they're now just scaling accordingly. So I don't really view what Nintendo is doing there as an indication of the entire market. I think they're still doing really well with the Switch 2, but with something like this newer hardware where we know this Xbox console is probably going to be more expensive, and I think the adoption rate for that will be slower. Will PlayStation have a similar issue if they're trying to launch their new console next year? I think all this has to be considered, where a game like Elder Scrolls 6 or other Bethesda games, and really any developer, needs to cast that wide net so that they can get things like ES6 on your Series X, on your Series S, on your Steam Deck, that sort of stuff. So at one point, Todd does talk about, with Mortismal, which we'll get into, the floor of ES6 in a lot of ways. The basis of it is Starfield, which was a Series X game. So I feel like Elder Scrolls 6 is starting there. For me, in a lot of ways, I was thinking about this as a truly next-gen thing. But I think you can start thinking about it more like it's going to be available on all of these devices. So again, that's how I kind of took away all this here. I wanted to talk a little bit about where Elder Scrolls 6 might be available, because to me it was sort of a new revelation in my brain because I wasn't thinking about it that way. Maybe y'all were already on that page. But let's get a little bit more into how Todd's thinking about RPGs, because I think the way he's going with things is a little bit interesting compared to where I think more hardcore games have landed in the popularity charts for games. Think of Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3 as we listen to this next Todd Howard quote here.
Picking the brain of people who've worked on RPGs for so long. I had a conversation with Leonard Boyarsky leading up to Outer Worlds 2 about how they think of RPG systems and creating friction for the player. I know, like, I still say Morrowind is one of my favorite RPGs to this day, because I look back on how much I had to like figure things out for myself. There's like a lot of friction that I enjoyed working. But he had some interesting answers, and I kind of want to throw that question to you as well, like especially as you continue to work on big RPGs that you want to appeal to a broad audience. But you know, Bethesda does have that history of, you know, letting players be free in this.
I want to pause 1 second and just shout out Michael. He's the interviewer. Awesome reviewer, and like one of the, I think, few voices in the press that doesn't get enough attention, and sort of like people complain about like IGN and stuff like not having like enough personalities and whatnot, but I feel like he's done a really good job like injecting himself and his taste into his work. And so I just wanted to give him some love on this, because I thought this is a great question. It's like, how is Bethesda thinking about hardcore RPGs? And I wanted to give him a shout on that. Okay, let's let him wrap up.
World and determining their, you know, what happens, what choice and consequence. So as you are building new games, you're still thinking of how to revolutionize the genre. How you think about choice and consequence and creating friction for players in a way that is still enjoyable for a broad audience?
That's a good question. I don't know that I agree with the word friction. I think it depends on the definition. I think it's choices that are interesting, where you know you chose one path over another. And that can also just be in a character system, like how you develop a character. You know, who do you want to be out of the gate? I think Starfield, you know, take that as an example compared to what we've had before with the backgrounds, and hey, you're going to start with these skills, and you sort of come out and say, hey, this is the character I want to role play. And so there's a pretty healthy debate here, I'll say, with no right or wrong answer, in terms of to have a different experience, to make a different character, at what point should you start over? And I think that's where you can maybe get into some friction. Where Oblivion, because it's remastered, when you play it again, it's a very clear game where you have a couple hours in, you're like, I think I chose wrong. And after Oblivion, I felt very strongly, I was seeing that a lot and thinking, I don't want that in my games. I don't want someone to be like, I made a mistake several hours ago and I have no way of correcting it, which is also why you see sort of the Skyrim system of, hey, you come out, you don't really pick a class. And even in Starfield or Fallout, you're sort of picking a starting point, but you can go in any direction. So if you feel you've made a mistake, you can still correct. There are other ways to do that also, where you get some scarcity, right? In that Starfield is a game with a character system where you can eventually, it's long, you can eventually get it all. Whereas you look at a 76 with cards, there's a scarcity. A lot of games, you know, RPGs in particular, I think there are games out there do quite a good job with like the scarcity of builds.
Earlier, you were...
I thought this answer was very interesting, because there's a little bit of like Todd kind of pontificating on it, like how you can create, quote, friction, which he doesn't like, end quote, but like this idea of like, how do you give them the feeling of making a choice but not pigeonholing them? And what we learn here through the Oblivion remaster is Todd doesn't like that moment of like, ooh, I picked wrong. I found this to be a very interesting takeaway, because when you look at, as I said earlier, some of the most popular games on the market, some that have experienced incredible virality, I think of Elden Ring, I think of Baldur's Gate 3, these very hardcore games, although some people say compared to other Souls games that Elden Ring isn't as hardcore because you can go around, fight enemies, level up, and then blitz a boss, and that's true. But when you look at something like Baldur's Gate 3, that's a game that did not compromise on anything that made Larian popular. It just kind of reached the masses. And I think the only thing that Larian did to help that get along there was better presentation, bringing the camera in a little bit more, letting you connect with the characters, animating them better, that sort of stuff. So when I see Todd sort of saying like, oh, I don't like that in my games, as in I don't like that sort of, I made a wrong choice here. He likes the ability to bail you out. So Skyrim, as people have talked about since Morrowind, there's been a little bit of watering down of their RPG systems. Morrowind, when you play that game, it's a staggering amount of like menu surfing. It's a staggering amount of like choice when you when you get off the boat and you fill out those immigration forms and you choose everything from your sign to you can customize your own class. Starfield looked like a little bit of a return to that. But the thing that we didn't really know about Starfield going in that we know now as players is that Starfield was a lot like Skyrim, where even when you choose those starting points, those starting skills and everything in Starfield, you can eventually earn all of that. So there's a level of your choice early on matters. It feels like you're doing something that's important, but when you understand the broader scope of the game, you realize everything is at your fingertips and you could eventually be great at everything. I like Todd's thoughts on scarcity. I think that's the best you can get out of a Bethesda game nowadays, frankly. It doesn't sound like they're ever going to look at the trends that are happening for, you know, your Baldur's Gates and whatnot and go into a more hardcore pocket, even though the lane is open, right? Because Todd has talked about in the past, like in very old quotes, to be fair, about how, you know, the world isn't ready for some of that stuff. Now the world feels like it's ready for those more hardcore things, but Bethesda, seemingly based on how Todd feels about Oblivion, still doesn't want to have you making those wrong choices and feeling like, oh man, I gotta like really put in a lot of hours to get that undone. And again, I think there's balances to it. Like Elden Ring, I would consider more hardcore, but Elden Ring also makes you work a little bit to respec, but you still can fully respec in Elden Ring and change your entire build. If you're getting up against a brick wall, there are interesting ways to overcome that. So I don't think when I hear this quote, I immediately think, oh my God, they're going to make ES6 completely casual. Although I think there's a stronger likelihood, given Bethesda's recent trajectory of games and Todd saying things like not thinking how Oblivion, which isn't even that hardcore in my opinion, is something that he didn't really like, how it kind of had you make those wrong choices. But again, I hope that there is even a level of scarcity, like 76 does this kind of well. 76, when you choose those perk cards, they matter because you could eventually get them all. But like for someone like me who does not endlessly grind 76, that leveling up process, that choice is a lot more heavily weighted than someone who's like a level 1000 and has all the perk cards and has the list of builds and they swap between them based on what they're doing in the game. Very different story for those types of players. So I hope they err more on the side of scarcity. It seems like that's a better part of the BGS spectrum for more hardcore RPG players. If they could go back to something like Oblivion, I think that'd be great, because I've argued that Oblivion is that good mixture, that good blending of sort of taking what is accessible about a Bethesda game, the roaming, the action combat. You swing, you make contact with your enemy, you deal health damage. With also some of the stuff that made Morrowind interesting, like classes and developing your character and evolving in ways that, again, feel accessible but not completely walled off. I thought that was a good best of both worlds mentality. I'll be curious to see if Elder Scrolls 6 wants to take notes from that, but it seems like there's a lot of stuff that Todd is critical of with that game. Next, I want to highlight two talking points here. I want to illustrate some of the Creation Engine 2 woes that were experienced during Starfield's development, because while Todd never really has centralized on this talking point, outside of like passing comments like, yeah, Starfield was a tough game for us, what we have now here is a bit of added clarity on what the Creation Engine 2 woes were, how Bethesda was battling them, and what is changing moving into Creation Engine 3, which I think can again explain some of the problems Starfield does have. So let's take a listen to two different blocks of this interview here. One's at the 7.5 minute mark, the other's at the 18 and 20 second mark. So we'll take a listen to both of these.
Gosh, I don't want to spoil too much. I mean, look, you get your whiz-bang rendering, shiny pixel stuff that everyone would expect. And I think the change to Creation Engine 2 from where we were for Starfield was such an, upheaval for what we were doing. We felt coming out of that we could have managed that better. So going into Creation Engine 3, I can't say enough about our tech staff and how they've handled that transition so that we can still be making a game while that is going on. I think it's, again, as we look at future tech, I already mentioned casting a pretty wide net and scaling way up and also down. I think there are things outside of the rendering that you would expect as it comes to data systems, how our worlds load, how they load content and present things of high detail close to the camera without spoiling it, So there's some foundational things that we felt we wanted to do the things we're doing in the future. And then obviously, like I said, all of the sort of graphics rendering things. But I think a lot of gamers, they were reacting to what's on the screen as they should, but a lot of people think that is engine. And so like the actual rendering, like the pixel shaders and everything that's happening, that's actually a smaller part of an engine than people think. The engine deals with data structures and loading and AI and save states and platform, like all of these things that go into an engine are far more than just the final frame.
Sure.
So a little bit of defending how people would attack the visuals of a creation engine game and say it's because of that, and saying it's basically effectively disarming, like, hey, it's not that, it's actually X, Y, and Z here. Before I give full thoughts, I want to jump to this second part of the quote here. So keep what Todd said in mind about creation engine, it being tough, and what they're sort of expanding upon for Elder Scrolls 6, which he's talked about already with the Kind of Funny Games interview. But let's jump over here to this part of the interview with Todd Howard, sort of in conclusion. And again, he revisits the talking point about lessons learned and sort of going into that technical issue that Starfield had and what they're learning going to Creation Engine 3. Again, I think it's quite telling.
We'll talk about that in depth. But the one thing I'd say is really the tech. As we're going to Creation Engine 3, again, the team has done a really incredible job at not just pushing what it is, but how it's integrated into our development cycle. So you don't feel that what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, like the game goes down. So we're in a fortunate position where that's a game where, the builds are really consistently working every day. Not every day, but more days than we've ever had, where the build is good, new stuff is in it, we can play it. And when you're making those kind of technical changes we talked about, often you're pulling the rug out from the team we're making content. Be like, okay, that doesn't work for this period of time. You have to wait till we get that working again. And we've done a really good job of managing that on this. And Starfield, we struggled there for a number of years in terms of when we went through the engine change.
Yeah.
I think this is a huge answer. I really do, because I look at this and I think to myself, okay, what is Bethesda's number one motto? They've said for years that I think holds true, and anyone who's ever worked in game development knows this is the case. It's that great games are played, not made. What you're hearing is that Bethesda was, to a certain extent, held off from playing their own game that they were making. And not only that, but they couldn't even make content for it. Todd talks a little bit about it with Mortismo as well, on how there were a lot of empty hands at times, and there was a lot of remaking things that were already done, basically just to keep hands full, keep people busy, even though those things might not be utilized in the final product. And that sort of development process, if experience is anything to go by, can really burn someone out when they've done a thing and then you reach a point in the game and they've got to redo it because something in your process has been updated visually or whatever, and so they got to do it again. Or programming, this can happen a lot if there's changes based on play tests and whatnot, or just design philosophies, ideas, or hey, this would be cool, let's try this out. And eventually you got to bolt that stuff down. But you can get into this pattern of iteration's good for game development, but also you can get into this point of just your idea jamming constantly. But that's a little bit aside from the point here. What we're hearing is that Creation Engine 2 caused a lot of problems for Starfield because they were trying to work on updating and upgrading this engine at the same time as making the game. And now they've learned a lot of lessons where they can upgrade this engine for Creation Engine 3 without blocking off content and playtests and that sort of stuff. When you combine that with the fact that the majority of the studio is on this game and that they're making that more successful transition over, as I said time in, time out, as someone who does like Starfield does echo to me a bit of this was the big old test bed for Elder Scrolls 6 in every single way. They are testing all these different ideas for Elder Scrolls 6 here in Starfield. And so now they've learned these engine issues. And I guess, again, I'll say what I think a lot of people feel, even if it feels like a shitty answer, is would I rather this whole kerfuffle happen to something like Starfield, or would I rather Elder Scrolls 6 come out in the best possible state as a result of that? I'll take a better ES6. Would I rather Bethesda nail all of them? 1,000%. But if it's become a trade-off because they fucked up on something, and keep in mind as well, again, I think people are going to think I'm running defense on Starfield. I'm not. Starfield was their pandemic game. You combine that with the engine swap and everything. I can see how this was it was long-winded development. I can see how this was a tough game for them. And that it wasn't exactly the grand return to form that they envisioned what it would be like when they went from 76 to something single player. That this had its own suite of issues. So now they're doing it again, but with lessons learned. So I'm hoping with the way Todd's illustrating things confidently that this Elder Scrolls 6 development cycle truly is going as smoothly as can be. And so now what I want to do is turn our attention, as you may have briefly heard there, the Mortismal Gaming intro. I want to turn our attention to some of Todd's answers on things like pricing. This was a question that I had actually asked Todd about a bit with Creation Club, and Mortismal's kind of following up on that. And what it illustrates here is how long it takes for these things to kind of get into motion at Bethesda. Because I asked Todd, this was mid-2024, I spoke to him about Creation Club pricing and how there were creations that were a bit overpriced, and how is Starfield or Bethesda responding to those with the issues Starfield's having. And now we're seeing here at the beginning of 2026, Bethesda kind of finally deploying feedback to that criticism. So let's take a listen to what Todd had to say about that in this Mortismal Gaming interview.
Your thoughts on that?
I mean, we take each one as it is. Like, what do we think gives it the most value for players? I will say Trackers Alliance is definitely one where when that came out, we sort of pricing things based on, other things we're seeing in the market or things that we've done. But at the end of the day, you look at the player response and how can we do, better. So Trackers Alliance in particular is one where we had the one mission, and now it's like, how can we get the most people to play this and experience it? We love the content. In that case, it definitely was a price reaction to, let's just give them all of the missions for that price. I will say on pricing, the one thing that's always, I think, hard for any game, probably more so for ours, and it's understandable where you say, what's the price of the base game? And then when you add on to it or do something, it's easy to slice the price of the main game and then say, well, that's this percentage of it. And that math never quite works out, and it would never work out for us, given the scale of our base games, if that makes sense. But that's generally how we approach it. And on Starfield now, given PlayStation 5 and other things, there was a long conversation as to, hey, what feels right here if we're a consumer?
So that sort of leads me.
So I thought this was a pretty solid answer, because Trackers Alliance was a bit controversial when it first showed up. For those who don't remember this, because this is like a deeper Starfield cut, Trackers Alliance was the $7 DLC, if you want to call it that dropped as part of the Creations. It was like the more official Bethesda content in Creations as sort of like the front runner. And then they also at the same time dropped like free missions into Starfield. And the free missions were better. Whereas like the DLC they did was shorter and it was more expensive. And so they're responding to that a little bit by adding more content into it. You can actually see here in this post from trueachievements.com that Starfield adds new Trackers Alliance bounty quests ahead of the DLC launch here. So if you're interested, there is more Trackers Alliance stuff that's being added here. But once you've purchased it, they've added 5 new missions for free. So that was their way of, I think, trying to do right, was adding more content to this, where it's like, hey, you already paid for this. We're not going to make you pay again for it, which I think was good. That was doing right by the people who maybe felt a little bit wronged by that price tag in particular. Like I had purchased it for my own video, so now I know I have all those for free. So that's cool that it's added to the game. But also we saw this in some other areas. Like we saw Avowed come out on PlayStation 5 for $50. And I said on Defining Duke that I hope that Xbox considers this for all of their future ports. Like they should not be going full price. These games are older. And if Avowed can go down to 50, Starfield is something I was expecting to go down. So Starfield launching at $50 on all platforms, I think was a good step. And if you're interested in the DLC and it, Shattered Space, you already know my thoughts on, but like if Terran Armada reviews well and you have those extra 1,000 Creation Club points or rather you want those 1,000 Creation Club points that come with the premium edition of a game, the standard price tag for Starfield is $70, or at least it was at launch. Now the premium edition is $70. So you get all the DLC, 1,000 Creation Club points. So I will say this in defense of Starfield. This is me actually defending Starfield. Its creations are pretty awesome. The teams there have done really good work on creation. So it's good to see Bethesda being price sensitive. Obviously, we have a great recent example where they were not price sensitive enough, and that was how they handled the breaking up of Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition, whether you were buying the Anniversary Edition bundle or buying it separately. You could tell their eyes were bigger than their stomachs at that point, and it was handled, I think, particularly terribly on how Bethesda really treated Fallout fans and the way they priced things there. It felt, again, with that combined with the endless merch, they just saw Season 2 money and realized they were a little flat-footed with Season 1, did the best they could. Now it's time to really cash out, and I think a lot of fans paid the price for that. So that was a good answer on pricing criticism. We've also got answers here on an adjustable difficulty setting. So this is one of my favorite features of Starfield, and how Todd thinks about what you can do on Starfield with like tweaking like what's more difficult, like how hard enemies hit in space, how hard enemies hit on the ground, and how that tweaks your overall experience earned, I think is one of Starfield's best systems, and I want to see it in their future games. And it seems like we might be getting that if Todd Howard's answer is anything to go by. So let's take a listen again.
And that one, I'm not clear on how it was received. I think that sort of things I've read or seen are a little bit mixed on that. We love it. I love it. And that stemmed from a debate over we're going to add a survival mode. So you could you should have filmed that meeting on like what we want here out of a survival mode. And I will say what's great about here is we debate it like the people on the internet do just before it exists. And there wasn't a clear, consensus on this is what survival feels like. And I suggested, looking at some other games too, Forza being one where I can dial in. Yeah. And then there was a debate over adjusting XP there. Okay. Like which ones will adjust XP by how much? What are we conveying and saying, this is how you should get rewarded for this and not for this by this amount? I love where we ended up. I also love sort of exposing that to our modders. And I mean, no promises, but it's a system we love here that I think you're going to see us continue to use in that way. And so we're going to take your feedback and say it's the correct one and just run with it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think this is, again, one of Starfield's best systems. There has been some post-launch support for Starfield that I think has made it better. This kind of modular difficulty system was one of those, again, because of the way you can tweak your experience, and you can make your own survival mode truly out of it. Like, there are features that run that deep, or you could be like me, who thought that, again, the combat was a little too easy, dial up the enemy damage a little bit, create a little more risk reward in Starfield. Suddenly you have a much more compelling shooter because the enemies are that much more threatening. Like, it could be that simple or that complex. I like it. I hope this indicates that for Fallout 3 Remaster, at the very least, they're going to kind of dabble in that a little bit, because they ran into a little bit of an issue with Oblivion's difficulty system, and they ended up adding a new middle tier for the difficulty in Oblivion Remaster because there was too much of a gap between, what was it, like Adept and something else I'm forgetting right now. Expert, I think it was. There was too much of a gap, so they added a new difficulty there. I think that was a good adjustment, but I think the true best adjustment is something that is a little more modular. At the same time, the conversation comes up of like the curated developer experience. I wrestle with this a little bit. I like when the game is handed to me and they're like, we built this experience and we want you to try to beat it. Obviously, the best example of this is like a Souls-like game. There is no difficulty mode. This is just what it is. Crimson Desert just came out. This is what it is. Beat it or don't. It is a real test of design, no doubt. But I also think Bethesda games do thrive on a level of freedom. And unless they decide to make for Elder Scrolls 6 more complex enemy types, more complex encounters, this is kind of the best you get with making the game a little bit more difficult. So I hope that they flirt with it a little bit more and at least deploy this system into Fallout 3 Remaster. Because again, Oblivion kind of hit that brick wall with a lot of people where, again, the level scaling was a problem. Fallout 3 doesn't have that issue, but Fallout 3 could become a more interesting shooter in the way Starfield became a more interesting shooter with this system, and use that as a test bed for how things would go with an Elder Scrolls 6. But I think this was, again, an interesting reply that seems to indicate, again, based on him saying no promises, but I don't think you've seen the end of it yet. Maybe it's something that they're kind of looking at for post-launch support for Fallout 3 Remaster. I don't know. Because, again, it seems like they don't want to launch it this way, is how Todd was indicating it in some earlier answers. Like, I don't want to launch it with all these features there. Like, they didn't want to, they talked about, you don't want to launch like a crushing difficulty mode. And I'm like, why don't you want to do that? And I think it's they're afraid of scaring people off, as we talked a bit about with Bethesda making more casual friendly RPGs. So let's continue this mammoth of a Matty slop video is what this is turning into. We still got a couple more clips I want to get into here. This next one is on breaking people's mods. Yeah, this is a familiar one. Let's take a listen.
Fallout 4 released, we always know that there's going to be some level of that, particularly obviously on PC, because some things are complicated. There was too much on that game, though.
Oops.
Right?
Let's try that again. Through the power of editing, you saw nothing. Okay, this time for real, let's take a listen to what Todd had to say about breaking people's mods.
Branches on Steam, but like, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, first, the way Fallout 4 released, we always know that there's going to be some level of that, particularly obviously on PC, because some things are complicated. There was too much on that game, though, right? On that release, there was too many, and there were a couple holes we had that we needed to shore up. But we're still in a place where it doesn't go as smoothly as even we would want. So there's still user pain just in how modding works. It's like increasing the storage space. Something that we kind of put off. There's some internal plumbing we need to do, but it's more so there's a lot of user pain there. So there might be a certain audience that says, I want my storage space increased. This is particularly on Xbox, because when we change it, there's nothing we can do about it. It just trashes all of your storage space. And so there's a lot of user pain there. And so you have your very informed users that are kind of at the top of the pyramid that we're thinking about, but there's a larger one where their game's just going to break and they have no understanding why, even if we're providing it. So we're still working to smooth that out. We've been really fortunate that our modding audience has been with us for a really long time. I think you've seen some of the creators here as well. And so just to let people know, like, it's a priority for us. Whenever we see that happening, we're always trying to do better. And I think we're in an okay place, but again, a lot of room to grow in terms of when we update our games, that nobody is sort of seeing that. Sure. And there's also the world of like script extenders that kind of piggyback on the executable. That's a tricky one too. We try to give them an early look to sort of prepare for it, but even that's tricky for those groups that do it. But just let people know, we're thinking about that, right? We're thinking about script extenders when we're doing things and what is the timing. And we do our absolute best there.
Speaking of...
So I was actually surprised to see this addressed in such a heavy-handed way. I'll be honest, this has been a pain point for Bethesda games for a while. You get a new update, there's that mixture of excitement of like, okay, what are they doing? What are they changing? What are they adding? It injects some life into the community. Like, we're all excited to go back to this game that we love, that we care about. But we also accept that, like, okay, the mods are about to be broken. And the problem with the mods breaking isn't just the user pain that Todd described. It's also that a lot of modders have to go back and tackle these ancient things that they had abandoned for a while and update them. And naturally, when that is the case, there are a lot of mods that those mod authors aren't around for. And so those are left behind and they're never updated. And so people can't have access to that content anymore. Obviously, with the inclusion of creations and money, a lot of modders have started to hang around more because, I've talked to enough creators as part of this system. People are building careers off of this, which is why I'm more open-minded to the creation system than I think like your average consumer would be, because a lot of people know what free mods are and then you have to pay for those now. But I also know as like a YouTuber, like what it's like to work completely for free and watch that dream turn into a thing where it's like, it's a career for me now. And that's an amazing feeling. It's to the support of your audience. So I get both sides of it all, but I'm a lot more open to creators of these mods, especially the ones that like, we know, like a Kingath. Like I think they're ones that like we can all agree, like they should get paid, dude. They make amazing stuff. But I was surprised to see this really tackled in such a heavy-handed way, and that Bethesda is actually thinking about how they can fix this sort of problem for their future games where it becomes a little bit more invisible. Because what I never considered is like, I figured it would never be a priority for Bethesda because it is as Todd described it, the highly informed user like me or you, someone who is deeply engaged in the Bethesda ecosystem would notice, oh, my shit broke. But I never really thought about it on the lower level for the people who just casually play Fallout 4 still to this day and download their creations. And this is their way of expanding what's in their game. And they love that little system there. And then one day it updates it and it's all broken. And they're like, what the fuck happened? That can be particularly painful with how casual friendly Bethesda games can be and how many users they probably lose, how many players they probably lose through that when it's such a core part of their ecosystem, not just for the modability of their games, but their storefronts too. So no doubt this is something that I imagine Bethesda wants to get on pretty quickly. I found it interesting that Todd mentioned that they actually do inform their mod authors in advance. I think that's a good step forward. I know Bethesda, like I've talked to Bethesda enough to know that like they are trying to set up their mod authors with more opportunities. Like I've been contacted by Bethesda recent occasions to be like, hey, do you want to be like on this list for this mod author when they reach out and they have updates on their mod? Like, do you want them to contact you? They're trying to make them feel more official, which is something that I gave them feedback on. I said, the reason people don't care about creations is because you guys don't give them the backing to make it feel like it's a thing worth caring about. When they see it's got the Bethesda stamp on it, it does give it a level of being official. Obviously, the addition to that would be things like achievements that really make it feel like official content. But there is an effort to make them feel like real things and not just mods. And so I believe Bethesda when they say they're actively looking into this stuff, because I feel it on my end of what I do as well. Let's keep going here and talk about smaller games. This was another question I asked Todd about, and his answer did break my heart because I said to him, hey, Todd, what about smaller games at Bethesda? And he was like 76. He kind of does a similar thing here, but he does give a little bit more of, I think, an engaging answer on where Bethesda is at with the smaller projects.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we feel we're going very fast. I get the point on sort of, your big tentpole releases, but look, given our scale, we're doing more than we have more in development, more releases over the last few years than we've had. And with that, you have to, keep in mind Fallout 76, such a big thing for us. We're on our 67th update that's coming out, I think. So the amount of things, if you look at like going out the door as far as updates and everything, it's a lot. And again, our trick is with our scale, feeding these massive franchises that people love while building new ones. And so, we always want to be faster about it, but I don't ever want to make that the goal. I think when you just focus on speed and getting things out, maybe you don't do your best work. Maybe they're not as special as they could be for the audience. And I also feel sometimes there are franchises too where you want them to breathe a little bit. Saying all that, like, hey, we get it. Obviously we're in development on Elder Scrolls 6, and coming back to that, we hadn't developed Elder Scrolls in that way in a while. It's been awesome for us, right? Being able to dive in and sit there and say, I'm playing Elder Scrolls 6. We pinch ourselves as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I envy that feeling. I'm glad they get to play it. Yeah, I thought this is a little bit more interesting of an answer that Mortismo got out of Todd on smaller games than what I managed to get, because what Todd talked about with speed is something that's been emphasized a lot by our fans like us. Like, we want more Bethesda content quicker, and Todd talked a lot about his answer usually defaulted to, the wait. It's important. Missing things is important. For him to kind of get more into the hastiness and how you don't do your best work that way is interesting, because I think a lot of people think Bethesda's taking their most time and doing their worst work in a lot of ways now. And so it's just interesting to see the difference between the audience and the creator side of things. Elder Scrolls 6 will be particularly telling because it'll be the game they took their most time with, like in the terms of technology. They waited for the moment. In the terms of just like, we announced it when we wanted to, and then they're going to reveal it again when they feel like it, which we'll talk about Elder Scrolls 6 and their expectations in a second here. Like, again, it'll be very interesting to see how that game is revealed when it's in our hands, and or I guess on our eyeballs, not in our hands, because we're not going to be playing it, but when we see it for the first time and go like, oh wow, is this looking like it's worth the wait here? I wish Bethesda did use their there's two ways they could have wielded their massive amount of manpower, right? They're like a huge team of like 500 people now, I think it is, or 400 something people now. You could do one of two things, right? You could just put all that staff onto like their big projects like Elder Scrolls 6, which most of their staff is on now. You could split it up a bit like they've done with 76 and other smaller things. Like, here's a Starfield team. Like, there's probably a little skeleton crew on that. They're working on these little things to support this game, keep those games afloat. There's the team that worked on Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition, and boy, did they do a job. So there are all these little teams, and you could break them up there, or you could have all those little teams abandon support for those games. Instead, Bethesda launches it as is, and those DLC teams turn into small game teams, and they work on smaller, like a Fallout pre-war first-person shooter campaign. I don't know, man. I dream a little bit. It's so hard to imagine Bethesda doing something like that, but also I think about one of their most popular games is Fallout Shelter. And what was kind of cute about that is it was like a small little thing. It was free on your phones, and it was great when it came out. It's, I think, the game that's made them the most money. So it's surprising to see like how that little thing turned into something so big that they don't think like the little sparks of like a little something here, a little something there could turn into something. Like, why isn't someone taking the settlement features from Fallout 4 and 76 and Starfield and building a whole game around that system, like a cozy game around that? I know my homie Gene Park has argued that Starfield is a cozy game. Respectfully, I would disagree with him. I don't think I think unless they evolve these modes tremendously, the settlement feature is kind of wearing out its welcome for me now with like these kind of play pretend like cappuccino machines and whatnot. But that's what I think about when I think of these smaller games, is why isn't Bethesda taking these feature sets that they build and making games about them so that they can expand those feature sets and incorporate them into the bigger thing? That would be cooler to me. But it seems like they're not going to be doing that. So I'm wasting my breath now. Let's talk a little bit about Elder Scrolls 6 to wrap up all these interviews and get into the expectations that Todd and the team are facing and how they're thinking about this. I did it again.
I'm looking at Matt Clinkscales, who runs marketing over here. We talk about that a lot. We sort of appreciate the expectations that are on it. There's nothing we can do about that except remind ourselves that, hey, it's been a while. Given what the Elder Scrolls and Skyrim has meant, not just to our audience, but tens of millions of gamers, that we have a responsibility to treat it right. I almost don't like talking about it because I find like anything that's said feels like it's adding to it in some way. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, my preference is to not talk about the stuff. And then, my perfect version is one day it just appears. Yeah. That probably won't be the case. Yeah. But, it's something we're aware of, and we've talked a lot about how we would announce and talk about a game like that.
Gotcha.
I find this interesting because I imagine they're going through one of two scenarios right now. I think there's an equally compelling case for Elder Scrolls 6 to never be talked about until its gameplay reveal, likely a year and a half, 2 years from now. As much as there is a compelling case for Bethesda to talk about it in how Starfield got a story trailer? Like, it showed up and the story trailer was basically like, here's the world, here's how it basically looks, pick this thing apart. And it satisfied fans for a while. I think what Todd's struggling with in these interviews is that everyone's always going to ask about Elder Scrolls 6. If I ever interviewed him again, I would ask about Elder Scrolls 6. Everyone, you have to ask about it. And Todd feels like when you give these answers, you're adding to the expectations. And I feel like there has to be a level of cooling people off a bit. Like, make a more official blanket-wide statement. Like, here's the trailer. Here's what it looks like. Get excited. We don't have a date for you. It'll be a while yet, but we wanted to give you something to sort of sit with for a while. At the same time, the argument against that for the people who are saying just wait till the gameplay is, look, we already gave them a little taste test back in 2018. But I think hindsight 2020, if you knew that it would be now 2026 and that there would be no official visual updates since then. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. So I think Bethesda could get away with showing an update, but it sounds like if they're just getting into like full team on the game now, play testing the game heavily now, visuals might not be in a spot where they're ready to really show them yet, maybe next year. And by that point, can you just punt it one more year and give it a more official gameplay reveal and just be like, hey, it's coming out this year? Either way, this will be a powder keg moment. I think Bethesda should not worry about, from my point of view, just purely anecdotal, if they're going to like remove some of the bang this game will have when it has that gameplay drop. I think this is going to be another Fallout 4 moment where you're going to see this game in like every corner of your life. Like, Fallout 4 was such a cool moment as a fan who, I started off late in my life, because I became a fan of Fallout 3. I know there were many OGs out there, but it was really cool to see this thing that to me was like a game I was still trying to get my friends into to become this mainstream hit where like ESPN was talking about how Fenway Park was in Fallout 4 because it was that big that it warranted like an article from ESPN. I thought that was sick. So I think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to find its way into all these pockets because everyone has heard of Skyrim. Everyone has interfaced with Skyrim. Elder Scrolls Online is huge. So I don't think Bethesda should make their decision, hopefully, on what they're worried about will affect their official numbers at the end of this, because it's going to be huge either way. But I do think there is a level of, I would rationalize more so if I were to pick a camp. I would rationalize, not even from a content creator point of view, but if I'm Bethesda, like, You got to get some heat off of Todd, bro. Like, this guy is constantly answering questions about Elder Scrolls 6, and people are making headlines out of "Don't ask us," pretend it doesn't exist, I'm not answering anything. Like, people are getting fed up. I think a little more so of a story trailer would go such a long way of being like, okay, something, and resetting the date, getting rid of the headlines like, oh my God, it's been X amount of days since an Elder Scrolls 6 trailer. It's been more days since it's been revealed than it's been the last time we got an Elder Scrolls game released. All that shit. Like, I think you got to dust that off, because then you can let the gameplay reveal do its thing. But certainly, no matter what, the expectations will be huge, and none of that's going to change that. But I think it could change the context of the interviews, where all Todd has to do now is be like, yeah, we dropped this trailer. We think it's really great. Tell us as our fans a little bit about the game. We're excited about it. Not ready to share more, but that trailer was for them. Easy. Make this man's job easier. Come on now. Anyway, that's all I've got for you when it comes to the Todd Howard interviews. And just a lot to talk about, man. A lot from the top to the bottom. Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, just a lot. So keen to get everyone's thoughts on this one. And son of a bitch, I forgot to record the whole fucking thing. Damn it. Gotta text Emmett. Yeah, it's going to be a big Matty Slop video. Either way. I guess it's good that I didn't record the whole thing, because Emmett will have to spend some time with that one, no doubt about it. Let me catch up on some of these super chats that I missed. Oh, no, we can clip it out of the stream. Yeah, you guys don't got to worry about that. We can clip it out of the stream. It just means that we're not going to post it today, unfortunately. We'll post something else today. Let me just catch up with some of these super chats here. Pushing Polygon Gaming asked me, do you think someday we'll get Skyrim remastered in the Unreal Engine 5 wrapper? Another note, DLSS 5 was a little hard from you. I was surprised that it was fine. Didn't change materially, in my opinion. More importantly, more important things to worry about. Well, I respectfully disagree. But I think, yes, someday we do get a Skyrim remaster. Bethesda would be crazy not to do that. It's just so memeable that why not? What's up, Matty? Been a big fan since the Skyrim tips days. Just wanted to show some support. Thanks for keeping it real. Mickey, that is a deep cut, dude. I forgot I used to do Skyrim tip videos. Thank you. We appreciate that. Dr. Strange Love asked me, is there any thoughts on Empire at War, but playing a giant 300 planet Clone Wars modded campaign? It's insane that they never made a sequel to this game. Yeah, this is one of my underplayed Star Wars games from that era of Golden Age Star Wars games. It's something I got to get on. I know very little about it, to be honest with you. I have it in my Steam library, though. Silver Lightning being a member for 66 months. That's crazy. Thank you. All right. I think I'm caught up with the super chats that I can't show on screen because for some reason the program I use expires. Gun to your head. When does Elder Scrolls 6 reveal and release? 2028. That'd be my take. I personally would have preferred it back in 2018. Todd said we haven't started work on Starfield. I started work on this and don't plan on to until after Starfield. Yeah. I guess I think they could have gotten away with the dual reveal is my take. Like, I think they could have got away with just doing Starfield in reaction to 76, creating that roadmap. But I also get it, because then people are going to be like, well, what about Elder Scrolls 6? Again, that mistake of, like, I talked about it, how you had Fallout 4 come out, and then we have this interview from, was it Bruce Smith? No, it was Kirk Coleman, who was like, yeah, we were going to do another Elder Scrolls game after Fallout 4, but they decided to do 76 and then Starfield. I think that was just one of their biggest mistakes when you really look at it all. Appreciate you guys supporting the streams, though. Whew, that was a big one. I guess it's good that's a Matty Slop video, because if that was a traditional Mr. Matty video, we wouldn't been here for, like, poor Dan would have been editing that thing for a fucking, like, 2 days. I'm getting some of my other stuff up for you guys here. Because we got more podcasts to listen to, except this time we're not going to listen to like 40 clips in one. We're listening to one clip, and we're going to break it down piece by piece. And I'm sure you can guess it's our favorite Nvidia CEO.
I guess
we'll talk about that next. Ay. I see a lot of you don't agree with my 2028 prediction on Elder Scrolls, but I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like next year is too soon. Like, when Todd keeps saying it'll be a while yet, whole team's on it. Unless they want to like launch it with the, I don't know, do they want to launch it with Helix? Certainly, again, Elder Scrolls 6 is this beast of a game that you just can't rush for anything. Like, I get it might be good for Xbox's plans to have it with Helix, but like, it doesn't matter. It's Elder Scrolls 6. Like, it just is a game that wields that power in a certain way. And so I don't think it has to adjust to anything. That would be my take. So I think it can take as long as it needs. And I think for if Starfield's development woes were anything to go by, I think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be, it's going to take a little bit longer time. Yeah, and Last of Us just mentioned this in chat that they have to maintain games like 76, Starfield, Fallout, maybe. We'll see what they do with the remaster. So I think 2028 is kind of generous, all things considered. I think a lot of people have said like 2029 or 2030 for Elder Scrolls 6, and that would be really disappointing. 29, I think we could eventually stomach, but like if we don't see the game by 28. I wish 26. 28. I don't know. Again, I got to think about it from the Todd Howard point of view. I'm like, does this guy want to keep taking interviews in the frequency he does and keep saying like nothing on Elder Scrolls 6 for 2 more years? So maybe they are close to talking a bit about Elder Scrolls 6, or does he just not care and just wants to deal with that question for 2 more years? I don't know. What do you even ask this guy when like the time comes and the game's out and like, what are we looking forward to next? It's going to be like, now it's questions about Fallout 5. I can't fathom the idea Starfield looks better with DLSS 5. Bethesda characters look so distinct that beautifying them creates dissonance with the art style. I agree. I think Bethesda games will get... I've talked about it a little bit on... I think it was on Summon Sign. That Bethesda games just need better like motion capture. Better animations. I think if they look the way they do and function more like a human, as in the way they move and walk and talk, that sort of stuff, if that was animated a lot better, I don't think you'd have any demands for added fidelity. And frankly, I don't get the addition to fidelity for Bethesda games that people seemingly are demanding so much that like Todd and everyone's like scrambling to like Todd talked about like increasing the detail when it's closer to the camera. And I'm guessing that's just like you have so many individualized objects in a world space for a Bethesda game that they're just like trying to increase the detail for that because you can pick it up and look at it. Like I think a lot of people forget in something like Skyrim or even Fallout 4's loading screens, like you can look at the objects up close and you can see the detail in them. So, there is some level of like, yeah, the object detail is worth it. But, I think when it comes to their characters, could they look a little bit better? Sure, they always can. But that's not the point. You don't play BGS games for that. Like straight up, you don't. And it's funny because a lot of developers used to argue like your games have to look beautiful to sell millions of copies. And I loved Bethesda games because I was like, no, they don't. Look how fucking ugly these things are. I use ugly loosely. I think they look beautiful in their own way. But look how untraditional they are in their art departments. And yet they see millions and millions of recurrent players. It's an incredible feat. So, yeah. I don't know. The beautification of Bethesda games is a little strange to me. Felt bad for Mertismal getting word of a last-minute switch to Todd Howard the night before. You can tell he was a little unprepared, but still did good. I don't think he felt unprepared personally. He had 20 minutes. But honestly, like, I'm not saying this about Mortismal, but like when you're a content creator, you jump at that thing, bro. Like that is like, oh, I'm going to get Todd instead. Fuck yeah. Like that's a huge opportunity for you. I wouldn't feel bad at all. Like I said, like when I got my interview, I took the interview on just like I was getting a Todd Howard interview. Then I learned I was going to be the only Todd Howard interview. I think it was like right before it happened. And I was like, okay, higher pressure, but like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like, this is my moment then. This is our moment. So you stay up late, you put the work in, you make it work. Like that's a huge opportunity. So I'm sure Mortismal did that because I didn't feel like he was unprepared for his interview. You know, and I thought his questions for him were good for sure. Kyle Cuts Vids got to interview Todd for Fallout 3. That's awesome. OG Todd in like the Fallout 3 t-shirt that just said Fallout 3 in like yellow with the light blue background. I got to get myself one of those. Yeah, Bo, Fallout 5 was greenlit. So there's another example. I mean, what is greenlit for Bethesda is what we don't know. Like pre-production for them goes for years. So if it takes a couple of years to get there, does that mean like, okay, they greenlight Fallout 5, what was it, last year? Do they expect Elder Scrolls 6 out by 2027 so that they can pre-produce Fallout 5 for 2 years and then transition everyone over to that project? Because then that could say a lot. Interesting catch. Interesting thought. Pete Hines ferried me to the interview and everything. Core memory. That's sick, dude. I love that. Pete's a good dude. Not surprised he ferried your whole ass all out to that interview. Love that. Do I have my notes ready for this? I do. Okay, cool. Any BGS fan has loads of questions they want to ask Todd. Exactly. Yeah, there's just so much to be said. You know, there is obviously like the, you know, every interview you got to like, I've had interviews where I haven't had to screen any questions at all. I always give them over to the person I'm interviewing because I want them to be prepared. That's the way you get the best answers. But I've had some interviews where it's like, oh, please remove these. But like most times, like it's just good to go. And so I can imagine if like Mortismal learned like the day before, maybe that's something that kind of like shoot him up is like, okay, like I got to get these questions through and approved. And like in my case, again, when I interviewed Todd, like there was a level of like, if you want to ask about Indiana Jones, this interview will have to be screened by Disney. And if you want like that extra layer of people checking out your stuff and deciding the yay or nay things, then ask at your own risk, basically was what I was told. And that's why I opted to not ask any Indiana Jones questions because, again, like I thought it was just more important to get to like the meat and potatoes of the conversation. So I imagine with less time, he had to like just get on the questions that he knew could be answered. And that's a little bit trickier. But yeah, ultimately, I thought he did a great job at the interview, you know, especially for the time limit. Both sides did, IGN and Mortismal, you know. Also, keep in mind, Todd just did like an hour interview with Greg Miller, so I'm sure he's going to go quiet on interviews for some time now. Could be wrong. Maybe he comes out during the summer. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of people in chat thinking Elder Scrolls 6 next year. I'd like to be wrong. You know, Bethesda is very unpredictable with that stuff. Certainly we'll know because it's going to start to leak. That's the main thing. We'll start to know when it leaks. Yeah, music is definitely one of their starting points, Bo. Like, music is definitely a starting point for their pre-production. If Fallout 4 was anything to go by, right? We saw the concept art. Of course, that's a huge part of pre-production. Like Like, what are the core mechanics? What's the world, the lore, writing all that up. Starfield, we saw a bit of that, like Emil writing on Google Docs, which is low-key validating because we use Google Docs for a lot of our games. And I'm like, do developers use like a different place to like store all of their like lore stuff? And it's like, no, they use Google Docs. It's great. But yeah, it's the kind of lower level stuff. Amazing it's so little about his leak so far. Well, no, I wouldn't say that, because here's the thing. There have been Elder Scrolls 6 leaks, per se. But what happened with Starfield is there were also leaks that were unbelievable until the game came out. And then we looked back on those old leaks and realized a lot of them were real. Elder Scrolls 6 has had a number of leaks that are like, you know, multiple open worlds or one big landmass, or boat sailing has been a really consistent one. So there have been leaks, but we'll see which ones are real. And then it's a tale of as old as time itself. Bethesda games have leaks. No one believes them. See Bethesda game, go back to old leaks, learn more about the game than you ever knew before, because everything lined up in that post. And then you check out that person's older posts and you realize how much more accurate they were about their other posts. And you're like, oh my God, people are afraid or hyped. I don't know. It either goes one way or the other. I believe Einon Zur is confirmed to be doing Elder Scrolls 6. Let's check. Oh, interesting. I thought it was officially confirmed. Yeah, it's not confirmed yet. I honestly would like Bethesda to go... I don't know. Einon Zur did Dragon Age Origins. And so I wouldn't hate if he did Elder Scrolls 6. But also Einon Zur has a soundscape that I think works really well for Fallout. It's very brassy, very hollow. And so that worked for like a war setting in Dragon Age Origins. We'll see if there's like a war setting for Elder Scrolls 6, because it could fit well with that. Obviously, Jeremy Soul's work is like, I mean, I know the stories about the guy online. I'm not trying to disregard that, but like Jeremy Soul's work makes these Elder Scrolls games so distinct and adds so much personality. It's such a shame that everything happened the way it did, because you know, there would be no question marks about us after Skyrim being like, okay, you're up, dude. Like, do it again. So yeah, I'm sure Einon Zur is the top candidate, but I worry that because he did Starfield, and Starfield, I will be on, as someone who likes Einon Zur's work a lot, I think in the terms of his high profile work, you know, Dragon Age, Fallout, Elder Scroll, or Starfield, I think Starfield was his worst work. It was just very ambiguous. It was undefined. There was no, I can't remember the Starfield soundtrack. There was nothing attaching me to it, bringing me to it. It was one of my biggest sticking points of the game. I was like, I know Fallout 3. I know Fallout 4. I know Dragon Age Origins. Like, I know this guy's work. I do not know his Starfield work. It just did not sing in the same way at all. It just felt very unimpactful. So personally, I don't know. I don't want his soundscape to define every Bethesda game going forward, because it's like, I like that Einon did Fallout and Jeremy Soul was doing Elder Scrolls. They were two different sounds, two different feels. But again, Einon's done great work with fantasy before. He did Dragon Age Origins. Only one song was memorable, and that's because COD kept humming it. Exactly, the main theme. And the reason the main theme of Starfield, the motif for Starfield, was so memorable was because it was in every fucking track, like da-da-da-da-da. Every time you fast traveled, in every track it did that. It was like, oh my God, bro, it's just like hung up on this one motif. Kills me. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Hazamati Yinon is pronounced Yinon. It's a Hebrew origin, common Israeli name. I apologize. I thought it was Einon. I thought I had seen him. I usually go to interviews and check because I feel like it's disrespectful to get someone's name wrong. So I feel bad. I've been casually calling him the wrong fucking name for a crazy long time. So thank you for that correction. I appreciate that. Meatball, good to see you, brother. Glad you like the summon sign epi. Let's move on to our next topic, guys. We got another podcast to listen to here. This time it is Lex Friedman. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into some Matty slop. This time I'll remember to record it, I swear to God. Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the true slop has arrived. DLSS 5. It's not Matty slop. Like I said last time we talked about DLSS 5, I was like, look, man, I'll take off my gold medal for this one. We'll give it over to DLSS 5. They're the winner here. Now, in light of everything that's happened with DLSS 5, we have covered this pretty heavily. Last we heard, Nvidia was like, first off, they're wrong about it. That's what Tom's Hardware had covered, that Nvidia CEO said we were wrong about how we felt about DLSS 5. Then the Lex Friedman podcast shows up. And Lex has been on a gamer tour. He's talked about with Dan Houser. He's talked with Jeff Kaplan. Now he's talking with Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of Nvidia. Obviously, this is pretty key because we want to know what's going on with DLSS 5. Now, when you see all the timestamps here of this 2.5-hour interview, right here is the only little section we're listening to where we talk a bit about DLSS 5 and what's going on with video games. Now, you can tell that due to the response, this answer dials it in a lot more, but I'm getting so tired of the how do you do, fellow kids, with AI from executives that are constantly pushing it down our throats because, yes, we are going to go down this rabbit hole of another AI executive saying to you, I actually don't like slop either, and what that actually means. So let's take a listen to the Lex Friedman podcast, which is a show, by the way, that I quite enjoy. I don't listen to every episode, but I think it's like a show that you can listen to, expecting Lex to take that more neutral stance and that you're going to get interesting answers out of his guests. And definitely, more importantly, you're there for the stories they tell than anything. So let's take a listen to what Jensen had to say about DLSS 5. Again, this is the latest response we got from him. So let's take a listen.
People, gamers online, were concerned that it makes games look like AI slop.
Yeah.
What do you think of this drama?
Yeah. I think their perspective makes sense, and I could see where they're coming from, because I don't love AI slop myself. You know, all of the AI generated content increasingly looks similar, and they're all beautiful. And
right away, I'm just like, I don't like slop. It all looks similar. Sentence ends. But then he has to say it looks beautiful because he's trying to push this shit. Keep going, please. I love this. Keep going.
And I'm empathetic towards what they're thinking. That's just not what DLSS 5 is trying to do. I showed several examples of it.
Okay. Before I go any further, let's just talk about this whole, I too don't like AI slop. We have seen a new trend take place here. And this new trend that's taking place is AI executives now telling you that they also don't like slop. They're using your words to describe the thing that they're making and trying to casually say, like, I'm with you. I'm one of you. I don't like slop as well. But what we're seeing crack in here is them trying to accomplish that their AI is not slop. What we're doing is not slop. What others are doing is slop, but us, in this case, Nvidia, this is not slop. Here's some examples for you. My favorite quote to start off 2026, really was the end of 2025, Satya Nadella, right? Here we go. I'll read this in full because I get a kick out of it every time because it's such a word. The other thing is word salad, and we'll get into that secondly. A new concept that evolves bicycles for the mind, such as that we always think of AI as a scaffolding for human potential versus a substitute. What matters is not the power of any given model, but how people choose to apply it to achieve their goals. We need to get beyond the arguments of slop versus sophistication and develop a new equilibrium in terms of our theory of the mind that accounts for humans being equipped with these new cognitive amplifier tools as we relate to each other. This is the product design question we need to debate and answer. So again, just this whole thing of like, there's slop, and then what we're doing is sophisticated. What AI truly is sophisticated. Please stop calling it slop. My other recent favorite Microsoft executive slop statement actually came from the new head of Xbox in Asha Sharma. She talked about the future of play here in her announcement blog post as she took over Phil Spencer's job. They talked about the future of play, saying, to meet the moment, we will incentivize or invent new business models and new ways to play by leaning into what we already have, iconic teams, characters, and worlds that people love. We will not treat those worlds as static IP to milk and monetize. We will build a shared platform and tools that empower developers and players to create and share their own stories. As monetization and AI evolve and influence this future, we will not chase short-term efficiency or flood our ecosystem with soulless AI slop. Games are and always will be art crafted by humans and created with the most innovative technology provided by us. So there's two great examples that have happened in the last handful of months of people who have, in Asha Sharma's case, come from an AI executive background and now are in gaming, or in the case of Satya Nadella, which could not gargle AI any harder, and now Jensen, who's also saying, I too don't like slop. And I'm just calling it as I see it at this point, dude. I hate to be that guy who's like, I'm just the guy who calls it as I see it. But like, bullshit, dude. You guys obviously don't know what slop is because you're the ones who are peddling it forward. But we continue to see these AI execs be like, I also don't like slop. But look, that's not what it is. Yes, it is. In fact, I would say DLSS 5 is one of the most on-point examples of what people would call AI slop. But then we get into what actually, from Jensen's point of view, AI is. What DLSS 5 actually is. And again, we're going to go into like, okay, what you're saying versus what your team's saying and how they contradict one another. So please sit with me and have a listen to Nvidia CEO as he digs himself into a deeper hole here.
But DLSS 5 is 3D conditioned, 3D guided. It's ground truth, structured data guided. And so the artist determined the geometry. We are completely truthful to the geometry, maintained so in every single frame. It's conditioned by the textures, the artistry of the artist. And so every single frame, it enhances, but it doesn't change anything. Now, the question about enhancing.
That's literally a lie. It enhances, but it doesn't change anything. We literally saw it change things. It changed Grace's appearance. She was, as many people have coined the term, yassified. We saw Starfield dude got a whole new haircut. We saw new shadows being added to his face. We saw his nose change up, dude. Like, it fundamentally changes how these characters look. But go off, King. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
DLSS 5 also lets, because the system is open, you could train your own models to determine, and you could even in the future prompt it, I want it to be a toon shader. I want it to look like this kind of, so you can give it even an example and it would generate in the style of that, all consistent with the artistry, the style, the intent of the artist. And so
So now we're getting away from this. Originally, what we were being told in response to all this is that this is a tool that you can modify the intensity of the image on screen. So it messes with color grading, lighting, all this stuff, and you can tune that to the artist's desire. We'll get into why that's also a complete lie. But what we're seeing here with DLSS 5 now is literally generative AI one-to-one. Here, image. I like Cuphead. Image. Make Cuphead style, or our game that wants to look like Cuphead. Boom, we got you. I know I'm simplifying it a little bit, but that's where we're trying to go to. And what this can lead to is something that Rafael Colantonio mentioned to me on Twitter about, which is that we're trying to simplify the back-end process so much that eventually games are just going to be like blocks, simple assets that you generate the prompt and say, make it do this, which he just described here to a T, like toon shader, make this cell shade, whatever it may be. And we're trying to get to that point where we give it a prompt and make it look like something. And eventually all these games are going to share a similar shape, like the visual shaders might change, but they'll share a similar appearance. And so when I see what Nvidia is doing here, bro, I'm just like, this to me, again, fundamentally fights against art itself. It's terrible. So let's keep going here because, again, he just keeps going in this direction that is opposite of what we have been told directly by Nvidia themselves. So let's hear.
That is done for the artist so that they can create something that is more beautiful, but still in the style that they want. I think that they got the impression that the games are going to come out the way the games are, shipped the way they do, and then we're going to post-process it. That's not what DLSS is intended to do.
Oh, okay.
DLSS is integrated with the artist. And so it's about giving the artist the tool of AI, the tool of generative AI. They could decide not to use it, you know.
I think people are very sensitive to.
Okay, so again, we're kind of going back to this whole idea of like it's integrated into the artist tool belt. The whole tool belt argument. You'll have to pardon my fatigue on this one, because I've heard this excuse so many times that like it's a tool on the tool belt. You don't have to use it. But I don't know when we got to this point where it's like, why does it have to exist then? If you are a technology company and you are making something that is legitimately like truly through and through optional on a level that is like, oh, if you think this looks bad, you don't need to use it, then like, why does it exist if this is something you so truthfully believe like this does make games better? Again, and he also goes back to this whole point of like the 3D geometry and the way it interacts with the environment, but it takes in a 2D frame to do all of that. And so it's not interacting with like the PBR materials in the engine itself, the roughness, things like that. It's not connecting with it on that level like people think it might be, like those who are more informed think it might be. That's not what's happening here. It's literally enhancing a frame. And we'll go through those answers one more time that Daniel Owen got from Nvidia himself. Because again, I want you to hear everything that's coming straight from the horse's mouth, and then we'll reread those answers and be like, okay, sure, Jensen. Well, why is it X, Y, and Z then? So again, let's take a listen here.
Human faces.
Yeah.
And we're now living in this moment, which I think is a beautiful one, which is people are sensitive to AI slop.
Yeah.
It puts a mirror to ourselves to help us realize that what we seek is imperfections. What we seek is sometimes not perfect graphics. It helps us understand what we find compelling in the worlds we create.
Mm-hmm.
And that's beautiful. And as long as it's tools that help us create those worlds.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
That's
wonderful.
right. It's yet another tool. And they want the generative models to generate the opposite of photoreal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll do that too. And so it's just yet another tool. I think
So this is where I do get my backup of like, one thing we haven't seen yet with DLSS 5 is how do we feel about a game that we see for the first time ever? Like they applied DLSS 5 to existing products and we saw how it changed things. Okay. Now, when we see a game with DLSS 5 implemented fully and leaning on it, how do we feel then? Right. That is my open-minded argument that would be, I guess, more favorable to someone like Nvidia. Like, okay, how will I feel when I see that? But now we're starting to hear about, like, they're trying to check these boxes of like, well, if you want it to be less perfect, whatever that is, because I don't feel like AI, tried to improve, like we saw their AI tool tried to improve the appearance of Grace, right? They took this girl who was about to visit the site her mother was killed at, and they're like, yeah, okay, so we're going to make her look even hotter. Cool. Like, let's give her makeup and everything like that and make her look like she's going out to a date afterwards. Like, that is what generative AI is going to do because it's trying to enhance, improve, right? Like, that looks better, right? But it's not in line with something like a story in a moment, which is, I guess, less organic, something that like a prompt can't really read that intent on. That's where you fine tune things. But again, if DLSS 5 can do all these things, like, oh, you can make it look uglier, you can make it work with this art style, that art style. If there was a flexibility, a true flexibility of like the toon shader to the older art styles, to that sort of stuff, why wasn't that showcased? If this was something that could do these things that would enhance future development, were people scared to show this with their brand new game because they knew it would be receiving a ton of blowback? That's my point, is that talk is cheap, especially with AI. You got to show this shit. If this is what it can do, we've got to see that, because that does add some nuance to the conversation that there really isn't much nuance needed. Right now, all I see is a CEO lying to me pretty frequently, not telling me the truth, and putting forward a tool that makes games look worse. So if you can do these other things, you got to show that too. But my guess is that these are future features that they're trying to kind of put out there now to be like, hey, you can do this too, you can do that too. Because again, they're trying to soften the blow, because it's clear this guy's giving now, this is another answer. Like, he's responded twice to this thing. So he's giving another suite of answers on what's going on with DLSS 5, right? And it's clear that there's some level, like maybe not visibly, like he doesn't look like, look at him. He does not look relatively panicked at this moment in time, although he wears that leather jacket constantly. So hopefully he's had time to wash that, but again, like, I don't think there's like panic on that level, but I'm sure there's a level of like, okay, like there's been a massive amount of backlash to this. Like, you probably got to be on it, but let's let him finish his thoughts here. And then I'll get into some other stuff I'm feeling.
The gamers might might also appreciate that in the last couple of years, we introduced skin shaders to the game developers. And many of those games have skin shaders that include subsurface scattering that make skin look more skin-like. And so the game developers are looking for more and more and more tools to express their art. And so this is just one more tool. They get to decide what to use.
Ridiculous.
It's not that simple. Okay. So again, that's the whole take straight from the horse's mouth. Again, you heard opening up that this is not post-processing. This is working at the 3D level. So once more, I bring up these answers that YouTuber Daniel Owen got from NVIDIA's GeForce evangelist Jacob Freeman here. And this is covered by Tech Power Up. And they actually formatted this through the video itself. So you see the question they asked and then the answer. And again, I need to go over this in light of what we just listened to because there's so much that's contradicted. For example, my biggest question is whether or not this model is effectively taking a single 2D frame as an input with motion vectors to create the output frame. This then relates to some clarifying questions. And the answer he got was, yes, DLSS 5 takes a 2D frame plus motion vectors as output or as input. So it's not interacting on a 3D level. Okay, let's take it a layer deeper here. You say the underlying geometry and textures are unchanged. Is the model actually aware of the 3D geometry, 3D depth, or is it essentially just looking at a 2D image and then reinterpreting it similar to taking a screenshot of a game and then asking an AI model to enhance the screenshot to make it look more realistic? To which the answer was, DLSS 5 is trained end-to-end to understand complex scene semantics such as characters, hair, fabric, translucent skin, along with environmental lighting conditions, front lit, backlit, or overcast by analyzing a frame. So again, it goes down to the 2D frame. It analyzes the 2D image and interprets all of that information. And based on the guesswork that generative AI is known to do, that's why we're getting the results that we see on screen here. So it is not this deep model that is truly aware of things like 3D depth, like interacting with the bones of the engine, which is another question that we get here. That's not what's happening. So again, when he's like, it's just another tool. It's another tool in the tool belt. These are passive answers designed to get it by people like you, who go like, okay, it's optional. Until, again, I always go back to this argument. DLSS was optional for getting games performant at a certain point. Optimization was useful until you had AI upscalers to handle it for you. And I don't think developers are lazy, but we do see this sort of copping out a little bit, right? So it's a bit frustrating to see. So part of my continued passion on this subject. Again, let's keep going with some of these answers you got. You say that with DLSS 5, the underlying geometry and textures are unchanged. However, in one of the publicly available examples, it looks like the character grew hair in a place that it didn't exist before. This seems to be a change to the model geometry or textures rather than just an enhancement of the lighting. In other words, it seems like an AI image generator reinterpreting the character, which can cause actual details to be changed. It also appears like some characters gain makeup that the original model did not seem to be wearing, which seems like it's changing the underlying texture. And the answer was a non-answer. The underlying geometry is unchanged. Also worth mentioning, this is a very early preview of the tech. Then why fucking show it? Why show it? Again, this is why it needs to be pushed back on, because now you're starting to see what, like I talked about with this interview, like, oh, it can interact with the toon shader. It can interact with like lesser pretty art styles. Like it can do that too. It's like, can it though? Because now you're showing what was your best swing of something that's coming out in fall. So like what, 6 months from now, with all this feedback to account for. And now we're calling it a very early preview. And by the way, it's like, it's also, I can't, dude. I can't. More answers. You say it enhances the PBR properties on materials. Is it aware of the PBR properties by reading them from the game engine in some way, or is it just looking at the output image and inferring them? In other words, it is my understanding that the game artists traditionally tell a shader what specific parts of the 3D model look like by giving it properties like metallic, roughness, normal maps to simulate bumpiness, etc. Is DLSS 5 taking those artist-created values or inputs, or is it inferring them? Again, answer. DLSS 5 only takes the rendered frame and motion vectors as inputs. Materials are inferred from the rendered frame. So it has to assume what the roughness, the metallic materials are, normal maps, those things are. And it has to be trained on that. So you could, another bailout argument for AI has been like, well, you train the model, and once it knows more, it'll get better. I don't see the trade-off being worth it. And last one. When you describe the tools developers have control of the model, it does not sound like there's actually a lot of control over DLSS 5's model interpretation of artistic intent of a scene beyond color grading. For example, In the opening scene of Resident Evil Requiem, Grace is a character with a lot of trauma who is reluctantly on her way to investigate a murder in the same location where her mother was murdered several years earlier. With DLSS 5 off, I get more of the impression of that character. With DLSS 5 on, it seems that there is a more photorealistic lighting and skin. It also looks like she's wearing makeup that was not present in the original version. So I like that, by the way, Daniel asked these questions repeatedly, where if they tried to avoid it once, that they couldn't avoid it a second time. This gives off a very different impression of the character and emotional impact of the scene. Can developers actually control anything about the output image beyond color grading? If they see DLSS 5 output and want to tweak it, like asking it to not apply makeup to the character, are they able to do so? Again, this comes down to characters and less so environment. Developers will have detailed controls such as intensity and color grading. Artists can make these controls to, or use these controls to adjust blending, contrast, saturation, and gamma, and determine where and how enhancements are applied to maintain the game's unique aesthetic. Developers can also mask specific areas or objects to be excluded from enhancement. We continue to talk to developers to understand all the ways they would like to control the technology. Ultimately, we see DLSS 5 as a tool for them to achieve their artistic vision rather than being limited to the capabilities of traditional real-time rendering, which is actually a little bit in line with what Jensen's saying, which is why, again, I don't believe anything Jensen's saying, because when this answer lines up and then we also see, yes, it's a 2D frame here, then I know Jensen's lying. Because then you see something here again where he's like, oh yeah, no, this is a tool for them to achieve their artistic vision. It's like that consistent talking point is still there with Jensen and this guy. So I'm like, okay, so there's an alignment here where this is a thing that they agree on is what DLSS 5 does. But when it comes to the 3D stuff, there's clearly a truth and a non-truth and all of that. But again, what you see here is the most this thing can do is you can mask out, say, think of it like Photoshop. It sounds like you can mask out the person. So right now you could mask me out of the image. So I'm unaffected by the changes of DLSS 5, but DLSS 5 can implement changes on color grading. What do we got here? Intensity, gamma, that sort of stuff to my background. So I will sit here looking like me, basically a fish out of water eventually, if you're not somewhat reflecting what your environment's doing, you know? Like if you want to turn up the blue in your environment, but your character is not being affected by the blue, then you have to include the character in what's affected by DLSS 5 to make sure that it's replicating what's in the environment. Am I making sense here? Like it doesn't, these two don't go together. It doesn't make fucking sense to me. And last one, is this model limited to screen space or does it have awareness of the environment outside of what's available? So again, does it see what's in front of you in that 2D, that frame, the screen image? Or is it able to see effectively behind the camera, we would say, and take in the entire level that the developers have built? And it says again that it only takes in the rendered frame and motion vectors as inputs. It's literally exactly what you feared, but they continue to try to disarm it with ways like, hey, we don't like slop either. Hey, it's not what you think it is. It continues to go. They continue to lie. And it's so annoying because it's like, stop acting like we don't have eyeballs, bro. This whole new wave that's been a thing since like the late 2010s of like, as long as I lie enough times and I bury the truth enough times, eventually people will shut up and move on to something else. I can't stand it. It's just so disingenuous. What would you expect from a CEO? Nonetheless, that's the latest on DLSS 5. It's an ugly situation, man. Chat, keen to get your thoughts on this one. Let's see how we're feeling. Also, can we even talk about how this shit was going to run? Like I really think that this is going to run terribly, too. Like, the fact that it required two 5090s, that's the part that's not even talked about enough, is like, you have two 5090s required to run this thing, and it looks awful. You know? Like the power and the money required to get that. And it looks terrible. What a shame. I actually remember to record that one. Yeah, Calvera, 2. Hang on. I think I might have to draft in my fantasy baseball league. Let's see here. Nope, I'm up in 4 picks. OpenAI just shut down Sora? Did they really? Wow, they did. The video generating app. Oh my God. Wow, that's huge. Look at this. OpenAI is shutting down its Sora video creation app. Disney's deal with OpenAI, which company struck in December, will be dissolved. Good. Good. The world is fucking healing, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God. Dude, I'm dancing on the fucking grave. I am dancing on the grave, bro. I'm doing tricks on it. I'm fucking twisting on it. I'm twerking on the grave. I'm doing everything on the fucking grave, dude. Fuck that shit. Let's go. I'm basking in these replies. Look at this shit. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, these are my people, man. Fuck yeah. Finally. Good riddance, dude. Fuck that shit. Oh, wait, this is the latest version of the post. Yeah, dude. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Never have I been more happy about something going away. Yeah, bro. OpenAI has been trending down for a while now. That just made my fucking day. Give me my Vince Carter gif. Watch this shit happen in real time. There we go. Yeah. Let that rip. Thank you. Uni professors mandating handwritten in-person tests this past year was a little domino. The bubble must burst. Yeah, dude. Like, it's just like, it's bad, dude. Like, I get the idea that tech is usually good, but I think, again, what we're missing in the conversation about AI is that technological progression is normally like an obvious good. I always go back to the light bulb. If I saw the light bulb compared to my fire and the effort that it takes to get a fireplace going versus a light switch, it is a totally different thing. It is a clear evolution. AI has not been a clear evolution. It's a fucking L, dude. Not 24/7, but like, dude. Thank you guys for listening to me rant about it. I know I can be annoying about it, so I appreciate it. Let's see here. Let me get, what's our next story? What do I have on the list here? Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, yeah. This will be a fun one. Let me get Emmett R. Where is it? I got too many windows open right now. Okay, there we go. I'm getting all of my Dragon's Dogma stuff in order here because your boy is ready to talk about this one. Ah, man. I fucking love this series, dude. I'm so excited. Okay. Future champ, respectfully, dude, I disagree. You know, I appreciate what you're trying to say, but I strongly disagree with at least with the AI devs I talk to, or the indie devs I talk to on AI. See, what's this? Yeah, Equinox is saying this too. I don't get this new revision. We'll talk about it in this Matty Slop video, no doubt. But like, I don't get this new revisionist history we got on Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm not there. I think people are upset that there's been no DLC, but I'm not there with the whole like this game's aged horribly. It sucks. I'm like, I fucking loved this thing when it came out. I think it's still great. I think I missed some super chats, by the way. Let me check real quick. I did. Plasma Snake said AI CEOs will serve you shit on a plate and then try to convince you it's not actually shit and then try to have a nuanced conversation about shit, serving shit. And I just hope it's not another physics situation Nvidia tried to pull off, wrote K. Dot. Yeah, agree with both of you, man. It's like... DD2 was mixed at launch. You're one of the few people I saw love it. All right, well, hey, then this will be all right. So I thank you, Ichigo, because what this helps me shape is the conversation to open things up. This is helpful feedback, so I appreciate this because I think it really, I would describe it as like everyone wins in this case. Then, as a huge DD fan, I'm excited for more DD, but also for those who were disappointed with DD2, this kind of dark Arisen moment can be great for the game, just like it was for the first one. Let's talk about it. Let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, as many of you may or may not know, I love Dragon's Dogma 2. I love the first one as well. Dragon's Dogma 2 was like this holy crap moment of gaming for me, though, because when the first one came out, it was during some dark days at Capcom. Like, that was the same year window, you may forget, that Resident Evil 6 came out. And I'm not like a Resident Evil 6 hater. I enjoy the game as like a guilty pleasure, but definitely, I think when we look at where Capcom is now, we're like, oh my God, yes. So as Capcom's enjoyed this bit of a resurgence, it's been like that what if moment for so many of my franchises that I love from Capcom. Dragon's Dogma is one of them. And I was like, oh, they'll never go back to that. Dragon's Dogma barely sold. They tried the anime, they tried the MMO, they tried all these things that they wanted to grow Dragon's Dogma more than it was, but they never did a traditional sequel. Now the moment's been missed. They're never going to do that. I also wonder if they would do the same thing with like Mega Man X. They've gone back to classic Mega Man, but I'm worrying about my man X. But anyway, when Dragon's Dogma 2 was announced, it came after Devil May Cry 5 release, which we heard they had a choice between those two. And it seems like the deal was do Devil May Cry 5 and you'll earn the right to do Dragon's Dogma 2. And they did it, and I loved it. Now, we were talking about it here in chat, and I've read online, there's been a lot of people who were disappointed with Dragon's Dogma 2. Can't relate, but I understand and respect your opinion. So what I'll say is this DLC expansion re-release news, potentially if it is that, can be great news for everybody. It's great news for a Dragon's Dogma diehard like me who's like, hell yeah, give me more. It could be great for those of you who are maybe dissatisfied with Dragon's Dogma 2 at its launch period, whether it be technical issues or thinking there was not enough meat on the bones, whatever it may be, the issues that you had. A dark Arisen moment for Dragon's Dogma 2 seems due for both sides of the audience, for those like me who want to go back and for those like you who may want more. So let's go down memory lane a little bit here with Dragon's Dogma 2. First and foremost, this game has not seen an update since April 8th, 2025. A lot of people were really bewildered by this because the expectation was that Dragon's Dogma 2 would get DLC very soon. The last actual post and update that we got from the official Dragon's Dogma Twitter account was here where we learned that 4 million Arisen around the world had joined Dragon's Dogma 2. So 4 million copies sold or 4 million players, depending on how you look at it. I don't know. Like they always kind of color up these stats. They say this is as of November 5th. So pretty decent. Compared to what something like Resident Evil is doing, though, Dragon's Dogma really isn't sniffing that territory, but that's still pretty good. However, it's fair to say that Dragon's Dogma 2 hasn't enjoyed the sustained sort of positive conversation that the first one did. The first one was just so distinct, especially at a time where like fantasy games were scratching and clawing for oxygen when a game like Skyrim had just came out about like 6 months prior, a little bit more than that, to Dragon's Dogma was Skyrim, right? So like Dragon's Dogma getting that kind of oxygen because it was so distinct in its boss fights and its world and its difficulty and the pawn system, like all these were really distinct elements that made it stand out. And over the years, as more people tried it with Dark Arisen and the additions to that, it really gained like a cult classic following and gained more sales over time where they could justify a sequel. But the second one really hasn't enjoyed that. It kind of came, made its impact, and like a lot of games just sort of faded out. So now what we get here is this post on the Dragon's Dogma Twitter account. It is a 2-year anniversary post. I can't believe it's been 2 years. And there's a lot of key points here for Dragon's Dogma 2 lovers that you'll want to pay attention to, that eagle-eyed Reddit fans have picked out and in some cases deciphered. Also keep in mind here that they're doing a Dragon's Dogma 2 controller, which I find to be mighty interesting given nothing has happened involving Dragon's Dogma in a while now. They're greenlighting some merch collaborations. Could just be for the anniversary. I don't know. But you got to wonder if there's something else kind of cooking here. What I want you to pay attention to is this letter right here. This is kind of key to it all. So this letter, when blown up, actually, you can see in this image here, you cannot read that. I have no idea what that says. That is in like an ancient language that is somewhere in the game. Well, someone went to the length of providing an alphabet for that, and they translated the letter. And the letter says, sightings of griffins flying in from the northern region have been confirmed. So this is, again, when you look at the whole image here, front and center. So it's there designed for you to be able to read. Another thing people are paying attention to is right here where my mouse is. We have a bigger image of that. Right here. Bro is not in the game. Bro has his back turned to the entire party. And he's obviously, when you look at the full image here, he's deliberately in view. But everyone else that's in the game is here. But he's not having it. So what you have here is a cryptic letter talking about griffins flying in from the northern region and who invited blood. But in all seriousness, that's what has gotten the Dragon's Dogma community a bit in like oh, what's going on here? Because then people started to dig through northern region references that were in Dragon's Dogma 2. And there were quite a few. First, an abundance of magical energy has been detected on the northern edge of Vermund, though the source is as yet unknown. Okay, you see that on the loading screen? Whatever. Another one here. The north of the continent is said to be home to an ancient nation, but records of its existence are scarce, and there's been no contact with its people for over a century. So again, something happened over there. We're not sure what exactly it is. And then one more time, the Hyperboreal Lorica armor set here. Armor that glitters with sublime light. Forged in honor of the deity to whom the Hyperboreans, a legendary bow-wielding people of the north, traced their lineage. So there's multiple mentionings of something from the north. And then we see this letter here talking about the northern region, which is again in this celebration image with dude in the back who just does not want to be bothered. Okay, and we don't see him in the game. So it's clear something's being teased here, I think. Very subtly, it's the perfect type of tease. This is subtle enough where I'm like, they might just be having some fun, but also I think they're trying to communicate something to us. And I love this sort of stuff. Okay, so what we're probably looking at here is a Dark Arisen 2 moment for this game, a re-release, if you will. That is what the first game got, but I think the first game had more problems than Dragon's Dogma 1 did at launch. There were some things that were, I think, attached to the personality of the game that I love that people found irritable, such as how often your pawns talked in the first game. This was a big problem. I thought it was hilarious, right? Just hearing the same lines over and over, but people didn't like that. So that was something that a re-release in Dark Arisen fine-tuned that stuff. But there was also a lot of rebalancing that was done. One thing that people did not like about Dragon's Dogma that I loved and still love is kind of what you actually find right now in Crimson Desert. Like you go into Crimson Desert and there was, until they updated the game like 2 days later, a lot of friction in its open world exploration. You had to be very calculated about going out there. And I think it works better for Dragon's Dogma because it was really designed with the idea of challenging you, massive boss fights, that sort of thing. Crimson Desert has its moments where it completely holds your hand through every step, and then other times where it wants to let you off the leash and just to kind of be Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or Dragon's Dogma. And I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, I think you have to be consistent in that design. So they're clearly picking their path with reducing open world friction and fast travel points by really focusing on, I think, a more accessible approach. I don't think Dragon's Dogma was built to be accessible. And so when the game first came out, things like fast travel was expensive and not really easy to come by. So one thing that the Dark Arisen re-release did was it adjusted some of these irritants. So they changed the cost of the Fairy Stone to allow you to fast travel to certain points in the game, how you set it up. This also added the Port Crystal to Casardis, so you could go back to the starter town with ease. So there was a lot of open world navigation that originally you'd have to plan your runs, basically. Like going out at nighttime in Dragon's Dogma, big mistake. But now, like, that difficulty is still there. But you can still, again, go out there and come back home a little bit easier instead of going out. But I love the journey still, like going out during the daytime and be like, okay, I got to get back, but it's nighttime and different bosses lurk at nighttime. I love that stuff. So they had to smooth that stuff out in Dragon's Dogma 1. They rebalanced a bunch of stuff. Like they rebalanced the assassin vocation. They added 100 new pieces of like tier 3 equipment. High level gear was added. I'm looking at my list here. 58 new level 3 skills, new skills for each of the character classes. And then the kind of cap on top was the Bitter Black Isle expansion. This was a high-level endgame dungeon that was added to Dragon's Dogma 1. It added like 30 plus new enemies, a bunch of new weapons, and a bunch of new bosses. And that was kind of like where people wanted to go to really test their skills. But also it added like a new final boss to the game, kind of rounded things out. It was, again, like the definitive version. Like nowadays, when you hand someone Dragon's Dogma, you hand them Dark Arisen. It was a great improvement to an already, I thought, excellent game, but it definitely refined some of those rough edges. Again, I think that Dragon's Dogma 2 has less rough edges, for sure. But that said, I'm here for more of it. So that would be cool with me. And maybe even adjusting to feedback that people had that they found annoying, that maybe they can make it a little more clear here. Like one thing people had issues with Dragon's Dogma 2 was missable content. And sometimes it wasn't clear. I love that Dragon's Dogma 2 ran on a clock, ran on a timer, and that there were points where quests would fail if you spent too long away from that NPC. Like, it really played into the time factor that already was in the first game. The first game, you had to be deliberate of when I go out, what time of day is it? But now it's like, when I go out, what quest am I doing, and am I ignoring something else? I felt it made that quest pressure very real that doesn't exist in really any other game. Basically, any other game out there, you can take on any quest whenever. They'll be like, my wife's dying in a cave full of goblins. Please help. But then there's this dissonance between the game and the quest urgency, because then I can just go and fight someone for like 500 hours, roam a bunch of dungeons and get to this later and be like, oh, hey, what's up? And then you help him and he's like, thank you, God, you jumped on this so quickly. Thank you. I'm like, no, I didn't. And like that disconnect will happen in big open world games, but I love how real that, again, that sort of timer felt in Dragon's Dogma 2. But could they communicate that a little bit better? Sure. Dragon's Dogma 2 also had this like disease that would kill you and the whole town. And it would spread in a very hard to detect way. You'd have to look at people's eyes. Again, I did not have my playthrough nuked by this, but knowing about it when I heard about it and then looking for people who I was like, oh, that pawn is fucked. I am not taking that pawn in. Like, I thought there was a fun little bit of tension there. So again, I'm not trying to overly defend Dragon's Dogma 2. I get it that it's got some issues for people, but I feel like it took a lot of the edges that were smooth after Dragon's Dogma 1 and Dark Arisen, brought them into 2, and kind of stayed true to the series identity. I also love the end game moment, we'll just say, with Dragon's Dogma 2 and how it reinvents its open world map. Again, without spoiling, I thought that was brilliant. I think you could have done more with it, and I think that's where they'll probably go with it as well. But I just love that they like committed so hard to that direction, and it wasn't like this major piece of the game. And they were like, no, we're just like reinventing this completely. So I think Dragon's Dogma as a series is fantastic. So I, as a fan, I'm just excited for more. But to see that it looks like they're probably going to be doing more content in what I imagine would be, given the gap of time, I don't think you can just show up and be like, here's an expansion or here's a little paid DLC. I think this is a full re-release, a more holistic rebalancing and additions on every level. And I'm sure it'll come out this year, and I will be there day one. I will be all over this thing, man, because I love Dragon's Dogma. I just have such warm memories with it. And Dragon's Dogma's Dark Arisen, if y'all are looking to get into the first one, playing that game on Switch, it's just right at home. Just very easy to pick up and play. Very cozy game. I don't know. I love the world so much. It's not like a narrative-driven game, really, but it's just such a captivating world because everything has a little bit of tension in it. So I love it. I love its boss fights. I love scaling my character and making them lethal. Like, just awesome stuff. So I'm excited to see what more they do with it. That's the win for me. And the win for people who aren't fans is like, hopefully they iron out their biggest issues. But more Dragon's Dogma 2 on the way is good news for me. Chat, how are we feeling? Would love to get some thoughts on this. Interesting question here. Do I think DLSS would work better for VR? Maybe. I don't know. I'm surprised VR is still kicking around. I gotta be honest. Maybe though. I'm not really for it anyway. Pardon my extreme take. What's up? I want to introduce Brook Gaming wireless adapters for retro consoles. It's on Amazon. I can play Fallout 3 on 360 with a Series X controller. Dave looking out for the retro community. How about that? Dave continues to be a community goat. We'd love to see Dave here. Zbat, I'm behind, but thank you for keeping Veilguard purely game-oriented. I hate how polarized the internet gets with politics and instantly tune out left or right. Very appreciated. My pleasure. Yeah, like look, here's my stance. I'll get into politics very gently here. Like you, I have my own suite of beliefs and things that I think are good and bad and all that shit. But do I think you come to me, MrMattyPlays, a video game content creator, for those takes? Fuck no. And if you think you need to take them from me, you got to reevaluate. Because that's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to educate you on politics. Because frankly, I'm still learning. And I think we all are, because this world is giving us constant whiplash. So to me, it's about the game. And yeah, there was a big intersection of politics and Dragon Age of Veilguard. In some ways, I get how it was inevitable, but I think it's important to constructively talk about these things. And so that is how I will march forward, but I won't expect other people to do it. But thank you for the support on that. It's my pleasure. And again, I try to keep it. It's not, there's no need to get, to me at least, no need to get messy with it. I want BioWare to be, for me, what my desire stems from is I want BioWare to be great. So I think the writing in Veilguard wasn't great. How can I help them watch that video, even if it's tough to hear, and do better? You know, that's how I take things. So for me being like, oh, this fucking woke shit, or whatever the fuck people are spouting about whatever game, or, oh my God, like it's going too hard, or whatever, like people are complaining on both sides. You know, I don't think that helps anything. That's just easy to get a developer to tune out, and I want them to listen. So I appreciate this. Thank you. I try to make an active effort, and it's good to see that recognized. Because again, I really, it's not just out of like fear of like, oh man, like, you know, does the audience care about my politics and shit? It's like, no, it just doesn't fucking matter for what I do, you know? And Nerf, thank you. I appreciate you. Kyle, I didn't thank you. Thank you for becoming a member, dude. Appreciate you. Am I crazy, or was the Amazing Spider-Man for 360 backwards compatible? I don't think so. I think that a lot of those licensed games weren't back compat. I'm trying to think. Did they have any Spider-Man Marvel games? I don't think they did. You might be thinking they had Ultimate Alliance. They re-released ports for the Ultimate Alliance. Ultimate Alliance had ports on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and those got taken off the market. But if you bought them, like I have them in my PlayStation library, I can re-download those whenever. Jimmy writes, I agree with your politics take, specifically on why people are going to gaming people for political takes. Yeah, like, I get caring about what my beliefs are. Like, you want to support someone who you think is a good person, you know? And I think that I still want to be dismissive of that element. I think that's really important. But it's my belief that it's like, you guys do not have to look far to hear something political. And I do like the idea, although there are many heavily politicized people who call me a coward or whatever, I don't give a fuck. Like, I believe that I need to create a space that just gets away from that shit, dude. No one wants to fucking hear about it in every corner. There are many of you who want to like click on a channel and know 10 out of 10 times that you're not going to hear about this shit. And that's what you get with me. That may not be what you get with, like, say, Last Stand Media. Colin, for example, will dive into politics, and that's fine. That's his thing. But for me, at least I would like to be the known quantity that you don't have to worry about that shit. That the thing you will be most mad about me with is my opinion on a game. And I think that's a win for everyone. Thank you, Uncharted Wolf, for accepting me as who I truly am. You know, I find, for me as a human being, I find the conversation online extremely exhausting. And if I feel that way, I try to think of how my audience feels. And so, sorry, I'm just checking my fantasy draft. They're doing this fantasy draft in a weird way. For those who play fantasy baseball, you know what I'm talking about. Normally, you sit down and you draft for like 2 hours and you're done with it. But for some reason, this league has decided to do a draft over multiple days. That as long as it's done by the 25th, we're good to go. And so Like we've been drafting for 2 days now, and like so I'll get like texts from the guys like, hey dude, you're up to draft. Like, and there's times I've been asleep, there's times I've been working, I've been podcasting, whatever. They're like, hey dude, can you draft real quick? And I'm like, thank God I prepared, because I'm just, as I'm going through my day to day, I'm adding players to my roster. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't holding anyone up. Do I do fantasy critic for games? We did it one time for, you were obviously there, Uncharted Wolf, because I remember seeing you in the comments and stuff, but we did it for Defining Duke. That was fun. Ever since Defining Duke Ultimate went away, we're not doing those kind of like theme things anymore. But it was fun the time we did it. And I was awful at it. I was so bad at it. It was so funny watching how like miserably I missed on so many games. Like the problem is with me as a fantasy draft in like video game scores down to like my fantasy baseball team is I love the sleeper picks too much. I love getting like the cheap value. I'm not really like a cheap person. I'm not very like overly frugal. So like, it's just kind of, it's weird because it's not even consistent with the person I am, but I love in fantasy, like getting the sleeper hits and being like, especially like I'm in like a dynasty league where like we get to carry over some of our roster. I love getting the guys who just like are great at a young age and you can carry them over, keep them in for the next year. So to me, I drafted in our last fantasy draft. I did, what was it? Suicide Squad is like a decent Metacritic score. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I completely bungled that one. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to try again. Let's see what we got here. What's next here? We got a one site video to do here on Game Pass. Some Xbox leaks. Matty picked Dragon's Dogma 2 Metacritic. That's the other thing. I move my heart too much. I definitely like when I'm excited for something like I had dreams of Dragon's Dogma 2. What was Dragon's Dogma's Metacritic? Before I speak too soon here. Dragon's Dogma 2 Metacritic. Hey now, 86, but the user score. Whoa. Maybe I'm just like, am I cooked? Hold on. Let me check Steam. What's this? What's Steam looking like? Dragon's Dogma 2 Steam. Dude, my life is a lie. This shit's mixed on Steam. What's going on? In all languages, too. I know it runs like shit. I think that was a big problem with Steam. Man, what a bummer. You hate to see it. Someone who gave Dragon's Dogma 1 a 9 out of 10. I do feel 2 is a solid 6 out of 10. Am I just like a fanboy then? Like, am I just not being objective? I kind of want to go back and check myself on this. Negative reviews are performance based. Okay, interesting. Unfortunate to see. Unfortunate to see. Come on, Capcom. Why you gotta fuck it up on like the one game I wanted from you? Come on now. Dave Wonder, good to see you, my friend. New pitch for a new RE game. Leon, Claire, Chris, and Jill star in it. It's a multi-part game like Final Fantasy VII Remake, except maybe just 2 parts instead of 3. What are your thoughts? Okay. All right, Dave. All right, so here's how I'm thinking. The multi-part thing is already kind of what they're doing, right? It seems like they're breaking up the story. Like when you see how the remakes went into Requiem, without spoiling, right? That was like a multi-part story now. So I think they're already doing that. What you're kind of describing is leading into like a Resident Evil 6 situation where they have a ton of playable characters at once. I think they will get there again, but I think give them 2 more games. I think it's 10, 11, and then they're going to hit it again. Like every 6 games, it's their Avengers moment. I think that would make sense, you know, at least for me. Could be wrong, but I think given how people were really, I don't know, mighty accepting of the accessible action-based Resident Evil with Requiem. They could put the pedal to the metal and just go for it next game. I like these thoughts, Dave. I like these thoughts. Why can't Bethesda follow BG3 RPG mechanics and New Vegas storytelling and weapons and ammo types and hand-to-hand combat and Fallout 4 gunplay? I think it's because they just don't want to. That's the unfortunate answer. I just don't think they want to do that. I don't think Todd, as a leader, believes in that until someone else takes his spot that believes in what you're talking about here. That's how their games are going to be. Much more accessible. Lower barrier to entry. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth Towns versus Crimson Desert Towns. I feel like Rebirth, no? Like, I feel like this is a really easy one for me, at least. I'm trying to think, like, both towns are really not super interactive, but, like, there's the card games, there's cooking, questing. They're kind of, I guess, on a similar interaction level. But there's more memories baked into 7 Rebirths Towns. And, like, mini games and stuff. I'm going 7 Rebirth. I'm going 7 Rebirth. All right, let's get into this next topic here. This next one, I don't know if this will be like a Matty Slop video or not. Oh, I forgot to. I'm still getting to the swing of things here. I gotta send Emmett Dragon's Dogma 2. Ay, ay, ay. I'm gonna show you what my friend just sent me because like he knows I have like all the Sly plushies. And he just sent me this and he was just like, since you like stuffed animals so much, and just the way he said it so disrespectfully, but I'm like, bro, I kind of want this because I love Jack and Daxter. Damn, that looks cool. Just thought it was funny though. I see some complaints about the Dragon's Dogma 2 story in chat, but like, I don't know. I don't really like. Dragon's Dogma 1 didn't really have much of a story either. Like, it's not like the story is like a conduit to like getting you out into the world and the danger of the world. Like, it's all about the danger. It's not about the questing and stuff, like, as in like a narrative per se. Would I hate if Dragon's Dogma 2 had a phenomenal narrative? No, but like, it's not really the point. So. Interesting to see people saying though it has like a paper thin or like bad narrative, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm usually, you know me, I'm not usually indifferent to story stuff, but I think that game completely justifies it. That's just me though. You guys are saying it's a Crimson Desert level story. All right, I got to go back to Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm gonna play that today. That'll be tomorrow's Retro Rebound video. We were gonna put. I had it installed because I was thinking about doing a sort of. I played this after Crimson Desert. Y'all have just locked it in though. Like, I'm fucking doing this shit tomorrow. Getting killed out here, man. I'll be interested to read the Matty Slop comments on this video we'll post about Dragon's Dogma 2 and see where people are at with it. DD2 is still good, but after DD1 it feels bad. Yeah, like that's the thing. I don't know. I played a lot of DD1 going into DD2, so I gotta. You guys are making me insecure. I gotta check myself. Yeah, Kimbo put it well. I'm fucking stun locked right now. That's my whole night. Like, I'm not playing Pacopia. We're gonna do another story or two. I'm gonna finish this fucking stream up, and I'm gonna go play some Dragon's Dogma because like now I'm like, oh man, I'm fucking curious. I'm so curious if I'm gonna feel the same way you guys are. I know how I feel now, but I'm curious now going in like, okay, let me reset and just run into this world again. Like, just picking up my old save file. How do I feel about this? Noctis, good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by. All right, let's get this next Matty Slop video underway here. Kyle, I couldn't even tell you what class, bro. It's been a while. I can't even remember. I usually like the archers, like the rangers or the assassins. I like those. I knew I had like 2 daggers, but I know I was also messing with like maxing out the vocations for all of my classes too. This will be fun to go back to. Let me make sure. Where's my copy? Hold on. We're going to put this shit in my PS5 right now. Hang on. This shit's getting hardcore installed right now. I thought I just heard it spit out the disc. Yeah, I think it was the Thief, Kyle. That sounds right, because I really like the dual daggers. At least that was the first one I maxed out. Dave Calzone. Hey, Dave Calzone. Thanks for becoming a member. Where's your TV even at? It's right here. Right behind the Revan statue. Yeah, so it's not an ideal setup, but it works. It's weird seeing him stand. Why are you talking about me like that, bro? Come on now. Trickster reveal was hype. Yeah, Trickster kind of under-delivered. I remember the Trickster I wasn't huge on. Let me let's get this Matty Slop rolling here. Let's do this, y'all. I don't know how long of a conversation this will be, but I want to explore it a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new report here from GameSpot, who is reporting on another report from The Information, which is paywalled. But what they break down here is a couple of actions that new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma is taking to make Xbox more appealing. We're going to get into a new Game Pass tier, as well as price reductions. We're going to get into a potential Netflix partnership, and we're also going to get into now a confirmation report of one move that Asha Sharma has made that I think has made Xbox already infinitely more appealing, at least from a optics standpoint. So let's read some of this article here from GameSpot and see where things lie. They write, Microsoft Gaming has a new CEO with Asha Sharma taking over Phil Spencer, and one big move she is reportedly considering making is a change to Xbox Game Pass to make it less expensive. The Information reported that one of her ambitions is to make future consoles and products like Game Pass more enticing to a broader range of customers. To that end, the report said Sharma might look to revamp pricing models for Game Pass to offer lower tiered prices, or lower price tiers. I apologize. This is obviously significant because while Xbox stepped on a number of rakes last year, arguably the biggest one outside of just like firing a ton of people and shutting down studios and closing projects down, the biggest one was the Game Pass price hike, because Xbox had prided itself so much on the value that it had given its audience for years. This was originally like a $15 a month service for Game Pass Ultimate, crawled its way up to $20. And I think we could stomach that a little bit because you were getting day one games. It was on PC, and they were adding new tiers like, hey, we teamed up with Riot. And like, if you're someone like Matty, who I used to play a lot of League of Legends, I don't want to give Riot money, but I sure love, as someone who has an active Game Pass subscription, having the benefit of like, oh, I have all the champs unlocked in League. Like, they kept teaming up with things like Ubisoft Plus, getting some Ubisoft games in there. So they were doing these deals that continue to incentivize the value, even as the price crawled up a bit, which we expected because Netflix had really trained us to expect that. Well, by October of last year, Game Pass went all in and basically said, you know what, we're not making enough money here, so we're going to lose a lot of subscriptions, but we're going to gain more money from the people who are sticking around. And they increased the price by a massive 50% to $30 a month for Game Pass Ultimate. This led to people like me, who were like huge supporters of the subscription service, leaving, and I have not subscribed since. And I remembered that because I went to go play some game that had a multiplayer feature, but I couldn't access it because I didn't have any sort of form of Game Pass. And so therefore I didn't have Xbox Live Gold, because Xbox, despite going into a PC-centered future, is still trying to make us pay for online play. Sure. Right now, the cheapest way to do Game Pass is through PC, which costs about as much as it used to for Game Pass Ultimate. It's about $16 a month, US dollars, to subscribe to PC Game Pass. And you get all the day one perks and whatnot, because Xbox, alongside the rest of the industry, has targeted PC as a massive growth area. So they don't want to cut you out, but the console users, like, you're getting nickeled and dimed, which has been a problem for Xbox because they have not taken care of their core base. And that's where the "this is an Xbox" marketing campaign became a bit of a problem. Now, as mentioned here by GameSpot, what is this lower tier option? Is it just going to be price cuts? Wouldn't really bet on that. But what they have in mind instead is, in terms of a lower tiered, I keep saying lower tiered price, lower price tier for Game Pass, it has been reported that Microsoft could offer an ad-based tier for Game Pass in the future. In fact, it was reported that people may be able to watch ads in exchange for playing Game Pass titles for free. Lots of other entertainment services offer ad-based tiers that are free or discounted compared to ad-free versions, with one example being Netflix. Its plan starts with ads at $8 a month, which is a hefty discount compared to $18 a month. This will be whole new, entirely uncharted territory for Xbox to start incorporating watching ads alongside accessing Game Pass. And look, I think maybe you can get away with that with Netflix and like casual TV watching experience. I would be fascinated to watch how gamers react to Xbox saying, here's your ad-based tier, which I think most of us think based on YouTube and whatnot, like ads, free, like you're doing with this video now or this stream now, right? Ads equal free. That's normally how we think about things. I would love to see a world where Xbox looks at Netflix and goes, ads plus money. That's a great idea. And just trying to tell gamers that you should pay $8 a month, $10 a month, whatever it may be. And you have to watch ads, but then you can access probably what I imagine would be the Game Pass core lineup. I don't think Xbox is going to give you like Game Pass Ultimate for dirt cheap. I don't think that's what's going to happen here. I think when you look at the Game Pass core library, which is kind of like the PS Plus core library, where they just build these built-in games where if you're subscribed at the lowest of lowest levels, you still have a massive library of games to play with, which again, I always say, like, even as a kid, like I wish I had that stuff around, because I was out there selling my soul at GameStop trying to get new games every week. But nonetheless, I would be really interested to see how Xbox wants to implement a ad tier, because it's easy for me as a consumer just to say, hey, multi-trillion-dollar company Microsoft, can you please cut your prices and not charge me $30 a month to play new games when games are a higher investment value than something like a movie? I can watch a ton of movies in a month and get it all done with and get my maximum value out of my subscription service. Games are inherently way longer investments, where part of what got me out of Game Pass with that price hike was like, I play games for a living, and I do not play nearly enough games as someone who like regularly sinks, I'd say 5 hours minimum a night. You know, I'll take my Switch to bed or Steam Deck to bed, whatever it may be, or I'll game here at this computer. Like 5 hours usually minimum a night, which is way more than the average Joe. And I'm putting that many hours in. I don't get the maximum value at a Game Pass, $30 a month. I don't beat nearly enough games for the scope and scale of these games, where I was like, I don't need to spend $30 a month. I'm just giving Microsoft money at that point. And I feel a lot of people woke up at that. But the difference is that even if they lost millions of subscribers, which I imagine no doubt they did because the service had plateaued and now they're charging way more, is those who are hanging around are making up the difference. So I can only imagine like what an ad tier looks like for them. But it's easy for me to sit here and tell the multi-trillion-dollar company, please cut your prices. But I don't think they'll actually do that. So yeah, I didn't use it enough. I unsubscribed. So they're looking at an ad tier package here. They're also exploring bundles. I thought this was an interesting part of the report here. Intriguingly, in the same report, Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters said he and Sharma have kicked around ideas for Netflix and Xbox and how they could work together on subscription bundles. Nothing has been confirmed, but Peters said he wouldn't eliminate any possibilities. Quote, you would have to do it in a way that works for the consumer and works for both companies. And frankly, I think Microsoft is still trying to figure out how to make the Game Pass bundle work for Microsoft, Peters said. But what I like about Asha's thinking is all about how do we do more? And it's already been exciting to watch. So now we're throwing this into the mix here. So what we're seeing basically at its most simple form here is Asha did say when she posted her whole letter saying we're going to explore new models and new ways of pricing things, is that ad tiers might be a thing that I know for a fact during the Phil Spencer tenure. I can quote me on it. They were I mean, there's already reports out there, so you don't even have to bother quoting me on it. But this was something that they were absolutely flirting with and that they wanted to do, but I think they were gun shy on, rightfully so. And so here we're now seeing kind of the feelers being put out through a report that, hey, ad-based tiers, it's a pretty good way to get the value down if we can't change the prices. What do you think? But now we're also seeing package deals. And we've seen Xbox collaborate in the past before. For those who pay deep attention to the Xbox ecosystem, this won't be too much of a surprise to you, but we've seen them, for example, team up with Crunchyroll. Sign up to Xbox. One of the perks for Game Pass was getting like 3 months of Crunchyroll for free. I think given Netflix was kind of exploring gaming a little bit, you got to get something more gaming inclined here. At the same point, I'm not advocating for Game Pass to go away. Okay, I've said already in Defining Duke that if you ask me like Game Pass or exclusives, I would go with the exclusives because I like to see Xbox compete in a much more interesting way. But that aside, I'm not advocating for Game Pass to go away here. But eventually, I do think if there's one thing you could look at during that Phil Spencer tenure and what he did, Game Pass was the best thing he did. It was also what I call the lifeline that choked them out because it gave them a little bit of length from the Xbox One generation into the Series generation. It gave us something kind of foundational to believe in for the Xbox fan who was hoping for a bit of a reset for that new Series generation. And carrying it all the way through, like Xbox was all about value. I think they did almost all they could to some extent. Like they were doing Xbox All Access packages so that you could pay like $40 and walk out of a store with your Series S and Game Pass attached to it. So you not only have a new console to set up, but also a full library of games that ran well at that time and also not be on the hook for like a year's worth of interest. Like you'd pay it off in a couple of months. So they just made purchasing and accessing your games, I think, as easy as possible. Where with Game Pass, I do wonder if unless Asha's a magician, if she can somehow, because the initial reported goal was 100 million subscribers. They barely passed 30. So they have to, number one, reassess their goals, readjust them from that point. And then with those new goals, how do you plan to hit them? And again, I think Xbox did what they could and made it so appealing. But I think the underlying truth is that we're in a subscription fatigued era. People are tired of not owning things. And I think people do find use for subscriptions. Like, I don't blame people for saying, hey, I'm going to sign up for Outer Worlds 2, which just came out, play it on Game Pass, unsubscribe, because that's cheaper than buying the game for $70. It's well within your right to do it, and that's why Game Pass is great. But I think people just want to own stuff. And I think there's more people who are moving there where people embrace the convenience of it. But I don't think it's like Netflix where hundreds, tens of millions of people are sticking around and just forgetting about it, because subscriptions are no longer forget about it money. I remember when I first subscribed to Netflix, it was like, what, $8, $9 or something like that. And I see the pricing packages for it now, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. It's insane. So I wish Xbox the best of luck on figuring that out. Again, we've seen them team up with other service providers. I think it would be like something you sign up for Netflix, you get Game Pass for a few months. Because, again, Xbox is going to be everything on like your TV screen. It's going to be on your PC. It's going to be a console. So Xbox is still everywhere. So maybe does Xbox benefit by teaming up with Netflix and getting people into their program some more there? This last bit of news here is a big move for Asha Sharma, and one that we can actually attribute to her now. It says, in other news, it was reported in the same piece that one of Sharma's first decisions at Microsoft Gaming CEO was to kill off the This Is an Xbox campaign, which people had a lot of feelings about. This campaign was quietly scrubbed from Microsoft's website shortly after Sharma took over as the CEO of Microsoft Gaming in February, which... bravo. And you can hear my dogs are freaking out upstairs because they love the decision as well, man. Such a good choice here. This Is an Xbox just was shitty. It was terrible. And I know that a lot of the blame got laid at Sarah Bond's feet, but I spread that blame across the entirety of the Xbox leadership core, because I know for a fact it wasn't just Sarah muscling her way into This Is an Xbox and Phil was like, whoa, me, CEO of Microsoft Gaming, is completely defenseless to all of this. I can't say anything about this. It got the green light from everybody all the way up to the top, okay? This Is an Xbox was bad because it told you that you were wrong. And that is, I don't specialize in marketing and PR and stuff. I don't do that for a living. But I can tell you right now that telling your customer they are wrong about something is the number one way to piss them off, even if you as the company might be right. And I don't think Xbox is right. But the idea of like saying like, your Xbox, like, this is how we game now. They started to push that shit with the new Game Pass price hike. This is how we game now. This continuous awful messaging of like, you're wrong for the way you play on Xbox. It's such an unbelievable, not even a shot to the foot, a shot to the head. So I thought that this whole marketing campaign was terrible, and I'm very glad to see them axe it and pretend it doesn't exist. I think the future starts now is a tagline that's totally vanilla, and that's fine. Knowing how bad it can get for Xbox, they want to go vanilla and go, the future starts now. And they put that up as their banner at GDC. Sure, dude. As long as you're not trying to tell people this is an Xbox and getting memed to death for over a year and acting like it's okay and acting like it's normal. I get the mentality, but the messaging behind it was awful. So that's what you've got going on with Xbox now. Some moves from Asha Sharma, and it's getting interesting out there. Game Pass price tier changing up a little bit. Netflix partnership. She actually killed the Xbox camp. This is an Xbox campaign. I think that was a great fucking move. So we'll see what else the Asha Sharma era brings into the fold here. But keen to see, I guess, what her first moves will be is how she is tackling making Game Pass appealing to people out there. So time will tell. All right. Any chance of getting Daniel Owen on a podcast? He's the best source I've found for what explains what DLSS slop actually is. I find his videos extremely well researched. I can reach out. That'd be interesting. Yeah, I can reach out. I got a lot of interviews I'm scheduling right now, so that's the only tricky part. It's like I'm saying yes, but in my head I'm also like, oh my God, I got so many other things that people I'm going to be interviewing. So it's definitely something that I can jump on and see if he'd be interested. I don't have any contact with him, so I also shouldn't assume he'd be interested. $50 Netflix pass. Oh my God. Let's see here. Oh, it's my dear friend, Henry. Good morning, my sloppy friend. Ads suck. Paying for ads is a delusional concept. P.S. Shout out to Slots and Daggers being the best slot machine game of 2025. Here's hoping for a console port. There we go. The man, the myth, the legend. Give Henry some love, please, and thank you. But will Xbox make you pay for ads? Give it time. I'm going to trust that Asha Sharma's number one objective is to not be making nearly as stupid of a decision as her. Like, she has a whole blueprint beautifully laid out to her. What not to do is what I would call it. It's all right there. And I don't mean to like demonize the entire leadership core, because again, I've said that I find it's very mixed, but it ultimately resulted in as much damage, if not more damage, being done than what we experienced with Don Matrick, which is saying a lot, dude. That was like an iconic fumble. But I would argue that the sustained damage over time, the poison damage of Phil Spencer's tenure, was equally negatively impactful. So as long as Asha doesn't convince herself like, hey, it'd be sick if people paid for ads, like $8 a month and you get ads, but it's cheaper and get access to this whole library. I hope she doesn't delude herself into thinking that would be cool or get Game Pass back on track. And again, I still argue the point of like, when do we get to that moment of, oh, I can draft my fantasy team now? When do we get to this moment of like, sorry. When do we get to this moment of like accepting that subscription service stuff is stagnating? Doesn't mean you have to can like 30 plus million subscribers or maybe high 20s now. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to can them all, but like, at what point do we start to just kind of accept that like these things are not as popular as they used to be? People want to go back to cable. I've noticed. I'm like, that shit was awful too. What do we do? Okay. I'm going to make a draft pick. I apologize for not being super attentive. I got to check my roster real quick. If I don't draft right away, I get like texts like, yo, can you pick please? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, there's no good pitchers left. That's what I wanted. Yeah, it's an MLB draft. To answer your question, I saw someone ask it. My stream chat just cut off. I might draft Chris Bassett. I don't know. Like he's not great, but like, I don't know. I'm big on the Orioles. Dave Wonder, I'm with you. Early 2000s gaming was peak, but I think gaming's peak now too. It's just you're exposed to a lot more bullshit than we used to be. Maybe I don't think I need to force a pitcher at this point. I'm gonna Got a couple options here for me. Let me check. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just checking stats real quick. No. Power numbers here. Sorry, I'm checking some power numbers here. Yeah, I think I might got to go with my man. All right, I'm checking one more person in my queue. And then let me check one more thing, guys. Sorry. Oh, hold on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this is fucking obvious. Hold up. I can't believe this guy's still available. Oh, and he's in a contract year? Yeah. Get on my team now. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I did not do a March Madness bracket. I like my mom works at a school and she was like, "Do you want to do the March Madness bracket with us?" And I was like, "I'm gonna be honest, Mom." And I was like, I know nothing about college sports right now. Like, I am so fucking out on it. Like, not from a negative point of view, just like I don't know. So I'd rather not waste the money or the time. Should you buy Crimson Desert out of FOMO? No, you should not. Crimson Desert's a great game so far from what I've played, but Crimson Desert is also a game that, like, it needs some work. It's getting some work done. And, like, if I'm you, I get it's fun to be part of that zeitgeist, but, like, since they already updated a lot of the core issues already, like, give it a week, man. Just give it a week. Like, you're still there. Like, you're still in the moment. Give it a week and see where they land with some extra updates, you know? I get where the audience is at because I do think in a lot of ways it is the perfect way for a sale game. You're seeing they're quickly updating it. It'll be discounted in time. There's a lot of potential underneath the hood. I wouldn't be surprised if they reworked the entire fucking intro of that game, dude. It's like, that is the one debilitating thing. And if they do that, then I'd be like, get in there. But right now, there's still core issues with the game. It's better. Feels a lot better with the update, but there's still core issues. But I wouldn't know. I'm not going to play much tonight because I'm going to be playing Dragon's Dogma. Be working on our Retro Rebound content up until fucking midnight, probably. Our pleasure, DJ Marshman. Crazy name. Yeah, also, here's the thing, man. I feel like audiences shouldn't experience FOMO for games. Like, it's one thing for, like, content creators. Like, we feel FOMO because, like, the audience interest can drive, like, okay, like, they want to see these games and, like, should we check them out? And, like, oh, but I'm playing this. I'm enjoying this. Should I be riding this game a little bit more? Like, I didn't ride Oblivion Remaster for that long. Like, I probably technically should have because I was kind of dissatisfied by the end of it all. And I was like, I don't want to. That's not like a great business choice, but that's just like how I've always done things. I lead with my heart a little bit. But, like, for you as the player who, like, just wants to know what's good and bad and when it's valuable, like, Crimson Desert's definitely, like, a little bit of a wait, you know? Not because it's bad, but, like, it's needs some work and it's getting some work and it's like they're going to hang with it. So why not give it an extra month and maybe save $10, $5 when it comes out and play a much superior version from those of us who had FOMO. If Microsoft shipped a special Fitbit device with Game Pass and then gave discount tiers based on how far a gamer jogged, sort of like Wii Fit, that'd be healthy and epic maybe. I'd want... Fuck it, why not, dude? That'd be a sick partnership. You get Microsoft reward points by exercising, dude. That would be a very Nintendo-ass thing for Microsoft to do, and I wouldn't hate them embracing that. That'd be kind of fun. I tend to get new game FOMO a lot from online. It's I get it. Like, it's just, if you can resist it, I think you're more powerful for it because for me, like, I'm the messenger at the end of the day. Like, people like me are the messengers, but you guys are the ones who decide the success and failure of things. And, like, if you don't cave to FOMO, like, it's fucking great. But I get it because then I'll make content about, like, my 4th video in a row on, like, you know, what's going on with Crimson Desert. People are like, damn, I kind of want to check this out now. This does look good. Doesn't Apple do this already with medals and whatnot? I don't know. Do they? I walk like every day pretty much, or at least I try to. I fail to sometimes. But if I was getting money for that, I'd love to know. I'd love to come back and collect. I don't get up to my fan for free Game Pass hours. Zerofication's a true engineer. Yeah, Henry, hook me up, bro. Because if we can make some money on walking, bro, we're gonna be in a good spot. Batman's butt sack. That's a name I love to see. Maddie, with remakes being the thing right now, would you rather see Web of Shadows or Ultimate Alliance get that treatment? Love your stuff in here since the Survivor 22.99 days. Holy shit! First of all, thank you. Second of all, that is the hardest fucking choice someone's put in front of me. Oh my god. Oh my god, dude. Okay, so you've asked the I very rarely get the perfect question, but Batman's butt sack, you have given me the perfect question because what you've given me is the game that needs the remake with all the potential in the world and what could be truly realized nowadays. And the game that doesn't need one, but with a fresh coat of paint, some enhanced effects, could just be beautiful to re-experience in a modern day and age. Ultimate Alliance is like one of my favorite games ever. The first Marvel Ultimate Alliance game is perfect. It is perfect on a fan service level. It is perfect on exposing you to new Marvel characters at that time. Like Deadpool was not relatively known and they like threw him in the game. The comic book missions, the story, some light choice and consequence with Nightcrawler and Jean Grey. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? What a sick fucking game. Like, oh my God. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got, hang on, I got to bring it out for visual. Hold on. Why not bring out both? Okay. Like I said, we got the GOAT. Now, I'm not a Platinum Hits dude, but this is the special edition that has like the DVD. It's got the comic. It's got the DLC characters on disc. Then we've got one of the most iconic Spider-Man games of all time. True choice and consequence here. Like hilarious choice and consequence though. Like Peter cheating on MJ. It's so funny. You can choose to be a cheater in this game. I'm just like, dude, what the fuck? You can choose to kill Wolverine. The choices in this game are fucking immaculate. Would I want to see that with a glow up and better pacing and better open world stuff? And like, there's like missions in this game, like take out 20 snipers in a row and they're all perched up on like a single city block and you just have to zip kick them over and over. This needs a remake more. This needs a remake more. Okay, I got to go logically. This could get re-released today and I wouldn't blink. In a sense of like, it's fine as is. This though, if it got re-released today, there's a lot of charm here, but a lot of rough edges. You iron those out, you make it look a little bit better. You got that cheesy comic book writing. Oh, you're cooking with gas, dude. They got to. Because I usually don't pull the, hey, instead of remaking something, can you give me something new? But I want an Ultimate Alliance 4 more than an Ultimate Alliance 1 remake. Though, would I bug out over an Ultimate Alliance remake? Sure. You'll see me gassing that thing up all day long. But I think Web of Shadows would be a sick remake candidate. That fucking opening cutscene. I gotta go Web of Shadows. Like, look at this corny ass opening. Hold on. Like, how do you remake Web of Shadows? Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Hang on. Let me I gotta listen to the peak. Okay. I'm gonna bring out this super chat here. Okay. Okay. Here we go. It's so edgy. I fucking love it. He's like, fuck it.
You have it, don't you? You know what that does to you. You know how it can change you.
If that thing gets control over you, gutting is still an option. Got me?
I love how they're just using gameplay for this too.
This city is going to be ours. You just wait and see.
I love how it's screen tearing too.
When this is said and done, who will the people remember as their savior?
And you're telling me you don't want to see that remade? Come on now. That drama, the juicy, juicy drama, we certainly need to go with Spider-Man Web of Shadows. Got to. My dogs need to shut up, dude. They need to get it together. They need to get it together. Better writing than Spider-Man 2? Depends what you define as better writing, Josh. Like, it's better writing in this sort of like it's okay, so I'm trying to think of a way to describe this without sounding politically inflammatory. Okay, perfect. Spider-Man 2 is written in the most extremely soft way imaginable. And then Spider-Man Web of Shadows is written in the most agonizingly early 2000s dramatic, like teen drama sort of way. So it's got that early 2000s angst attached to it, which people find equally nauseating. So I think that that type of writing is charming nowadays, but when we were in the thick of it, it was like, this shit sucks, bro. What is this? This is not true storytelling. And now we've got Super West saying that we need the Web of Shadows remake. There you go. How dare you talk trash about MJ's podcast? I forgot that was in the fucking game, bro. Yeah, like I was tuned. One of the games we're gonna revisit for Spider-Man. What is the new Spider-Man movie called? Brand New Day. I was like, what the fuck is it called? One of the games we're gonna revisit for that movie release is gonna be Spider-Man 2 because I need to do an updated review. My thoughts have grown increasingly negative on that game. Like I think that was the last time I thought like a review came out from me and was like, yeah, you know what? Like once I saw like I played, like I did impression, or I beat the game, I did my review, but I did that all in like a quick period of time. And I was like, I can't do this anymore because as the experience digested and I got my platinum for that game, I had a very different feeling about that game. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I liked it as much, but I still like it. And then as the years went on, I was like, I like the combat, I guess, but like otherwise there's so much I don't like about this game. So much. Like the Superman flying, I didn't like. The fact that they turned New York City into an amusement park, basically. The writing isn't as good. All the side quests are half finished because they're setting up Spider-Man 3. The main story, this is just a lot of problems with Spider-Man 2. So Josh says I played it for the first time last year and kind of liked it. Thought the original game was better though, and Miles was pretty great too. Like their original games, like Spider-Man 1 was great. Miles Morales was also great. I think Spider-Man 2 just shows like whatever they were doing on the writing side of things like really harmed my opinion of the game. Because it's fun to play, but then like I'll say this, when I got the platinum for Spider-Man 1, there was like no doubter. I didn't platinum Miles Morales because it required multiple playthroughs. Spider-Man 2, I platinumed. I remember when I platinumed that game, I was talking about it with a friend of mine. He gave up on the platinum, which obviously we know these fucking Sony exclusive platinums are so easy because they just make them that way. They help drive sales. But I was fatigued at it. I was like, I like felt like I was scratching and clawing my way to that platinum. It just wasn't nearly as fun. So yeah, there was just there's familiarity in it that kind of hurt the game a bit, but yeah, it's just It's a game with a lot of problems, unfortunately. But yeah, fun combat. Stealth was all right. Do you accept fan mail? I made you a Fallout prop. Well, thank you. I don't do fan mail though. I apologize. It's just not something I ever looked into setting up. I also don't. This is just me. Like if I met someone at a convention, they said, I made this for you, I want you to have it. I've had those gifts before. That I love because it's a much more personal thing. And I remember those things. Like when someone gave me like Nuka-Cola Quantum, like that was really cool. Or when someone handed me something just to have me sign it for them. I like that sort of personal stuff. I don't want to open up my line to people just sending me stuff, even though it's fun and I know you guys enjoy it. I like to have that kind of disconnect because I think it's important for when it does happen. It needs to be meaningful. But also like, without judging other creators, because some of them do make it fun. Like Gamers Join is a channel I love, Jared. And like I love, or Cynical as many of you know him. He does like really fun fan mail episodes. I love watching his fan mail stuff. It's really cool. Like he does a great job with it. He justifies it because he's like such a homey kind of channel. But otherwise there are many channels that I feel it's just like taking stuff in. Like, oh, thanks. And I don't want to be numb to that sort of stuff. I try to be sensitive with what I bring into my office and like how it fits into my overall vibe here and like into my house. Like I'm very conscious of that stuff. And I don't want to just have you guys send me things that are meaningful and I react to it like it's stuff because it's just too much. So I appreciate this sort of thought, but it's just one of those things where I don't want to like open the line. And I think like that disconnect is important so that if it does ever happen, which is rare for me, that it's meaningful. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. So I appreciate the thought and the sentiment, and hopefully we can meet at some point and you can hand me your Fallout prop. But yeah, it's one of those things where like the only fan stuff I've taken, like the recent fan thing, I don't like to use the term fan either, thing that I've taken in was someone sent us a letter. I don't want to put out their personal business, but someone sent us a letter at Last Stand and like Micah coordinated, and then we all got gifts from this person as sort of a thank you for our podcasting. And I got like a really cool, here. I got this alongside a letter, and this is fucking awesome. And I told them, I said, I sent them a message and I said, I'm going to hang it up in my office when I redo things in here, because what I want to do is like paint the walls in here and like redecorate and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, again, I'm over explaining at this point, but I just wanted to thank you again for the consideration, and hopefully that makes some sense. Hey, DJ Marshman, you're kind of cooking. Daredevil tonight, Spider-Man Noir in May. I forgot it's in fucking May. Oh my God. Spider-Man movie July, Wolverine September, animated Spider-Man in the fall, Doomsday, Marvel Cinema. Yeah, you're right, bro. This is kind of sick, dude. This is kind of sick. Ah, man. Yeah, I didn't realize how much Marvel shit was actually coming out that looked appealing, because like I'm interested in Noir. I think that's going to be great. It's going to be a great little deep cut for people like me who Shattered Dimensions is one of my favorite Spider-Man games. I can't wait for that's a good game that they should re-release. That would age really well, I think. Let me do one more. I'm feeling the vibe here. Let me do one more Matty Slop, guys. I got one more in me. Let's do this one together, shall we? Okay. I have to burp, I think. I did. Ooh. God bless me. I think. I actually didn't watch Daredevil Born Again Android, unfortunately. So I can't share thoughts on it. I know. But Daredevil's one I need to catch up on. I loved Daredevil when it first came out. Okay. Let's do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you a bit about PlayStation. They're doing some interesting stuff right now. And it's kind of strange because in this last week, there's just been a lot of tech things happening across the gaming space in general. Like, we've seen Xbox be like, here's auto FSR, and like, this is an AI upscaler, and like, you're gonna see your games improve. We're seeing, Nintendo do like a console docked mode in handheld for Switch 2. It's like, okay, sick. Like, we're seeing all these little incremental tech upgrades. Of course, DLSS 5 happened. It happened. And then PlayStation's kind of at the forefront for me in a lot of this stuff because they updated stuff for PS5 Pro, PS Portal, PS3, and now we're getting some rumors on what's happening with the PlayStation Network. I just want to talk about all of it because I was someone who, again, I like to hold myself accountable and try to take that pressure off the audience who, no doubt, I imagine a lot of you were like, yeah, he failed. Let's go. I like to, just be the person who just comes forward and be like, okay, I was heavily critical of PS5 Pro. When it was revealed, I was like, who is paying $750 for this thing? When it was first revealed, I felt very vindicated about that because the performance differences were not as massive. However, in the beginning of 2026, PlayStation has really doubled down on that with PSSR 2.0. And we've seen some real serious buffs for this across a whole slew of games. And what I wanted to look at was that first. They posted on their PlayStation blog that they upgraded the PSSR, and it's rolling out to Silent Hill F, Monster Hunter Wilds, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Crimson Desert, and more. And we actually saw it with Crimson Desert already, but like you can see examples here, like on PlayStation's own page here, where we can sort of see a comparison for Silent Hill. And if I could get this in a, hang on. We'll use the power of video editing on this one because it's super compressed on PlayStation's own page. It's going to be compressed no matter what, but hang on. There we go. It was in 720p by default, by the way. I was like, this doesn't really sell the image. As you can see here, Silent Hill F comparison. You can see it with PSSR on the right versus here on the left. Definitely like more foliage visibility and whatnot. It still looks and maintains that original artistic direction. And again, you can see in that detail there, it's to me clearer. And this is where, again, we got into this conversation about AI. This is where AI is great. I like that there is a noticeable upgrade for free to the video games that I have paid for. So I appreciate that sort of stuff. So that was an example of like what PSSR is doing for Silent Hill. What they describe it as here, they say, today, PS5 system software update introduces a broad support for upgraded version of PSSR, delivering enhanced image stability, improved clarity and fine details, and more consistent performance across supported titles. PSSR is an AI library that analyzes each frame pixel by pixel as it upscales game visuals. With this latest evolution, image reconstruction is more precise, motion stability is improved, and developers have greater flexibility to balance performance and fidelity on PS5 Pro. And again, when you start to see the list of developers and how they are supporting this thing, like, again, we're going to see here Veilguard, which Veilguard, for all the critiques it gets, I think is a pretty looking game. It's just not what I want a Dragon Age game to look like. But again, these screenshots look excellent. We go down here to Alan Wake 2. Again, excellent. And it's cool to see Remedy adopting this stuff because I know, for example, Control had some performance issues, and I know that's good to go on PS5 Pro. Makes this more compelling for me. Interestingly, Ninja Theory, who is an Xbox first-party studio, had comments on it. They said Ninja Theory has adopted upgraded PSSR for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. And I find that funny because, like, Hellblade 2 doesn't need it, dude. I have my problems with Hellblade 2, but that is a beautiful, beautiful video game here. And you can even see in this image here for some of the PSSR upscaling, like Cloud's hair looks really nice here, which is something that games have struggled with a bit. And I talked a bit about my issues with ray traced hair, where I'm like, that's some good hair right there. We don't need to ray trace fully the hair, but nonetheless, we have more here. Neo 3 is taken in, and that's a really sharp image. And like usually Koei Tecmo games, I find them to be more of a fun factor than a fidelity factor. So I like this one. Like, interesting. Okay, so these are looking good here. Capcom has confirmed that Monster Hunter Wilds and Dragon's Dogma 2 are going to be supporting the upgraded version of PSSR. And they say that more games are supported soon. The upgraded PSSR is fully integrated with the system update. In addition to the titles above, Crimson Desert's adopting it, which we know is out now. Assassin's Creed Shadows and Cyberpunk will also receive a patch in the coming weeks to support the new PSSR. And this is pretty huge because, again, this was kind of under-supported. It seems like PlayStation's making those partnerships to get this thing supported. Kind of like how Xbox is doing it with Play Anywhere. Like, Play Anywhere, I think Xbox expected more developers to come to. They didn't. And so Xbox has had to partner up to get more support for that, which is what we're going to kind of see with the Xbox partner preview this week in that showcase. To enable this stuff, it's actually a switch that you have to go to and turn on. So keep that in mind if you have access to this tech. But what PlayStation is doing for me as a sort of skeptic to the PS5 Pro experience has made me, and also keep in mind, I have a close friend who is a huge supporter of the PS5 Pro, and he's kind of in my ear. By the way, it's not Colin. It's like an actual personal friend. Because some people think like Colin's in my ear about PlayStation shit all the time. But he's been like big on it since day one. And I'm starting to kind of see like, all right, you know, I'm noticing it through YouTube videos, and that combined with like my OLED monitor, I'm like, damn, dude, like, might be an upgrade I got to look into now, especially when Cog was telling me he went to, I think it was GameStop, traded in his PS5 and got like a PS5 Pro for $250 or something like that. That's a huge deal. So I thought just that alone was, okay, interesting, right? We're seeing support for PSSR, and now PS5 Pro, for those who are like, I'm trying to get my PC visual experience on my console, we're seeing PS5 Pro start to pay off with new and old releases. So that was kind of that. Then we get this update here. And keep in mind, for the record, I am the #1 PS Portal supporter, okay? I love this thing. Just like how I loved Xbox Cloud Gaming, because right here, it's covered a little bit in dust, you might be able to see. But I used to use this thing all the time. This is the Logitech G Cloud Gaming handheld. I got this thing in 2021, and I used it extensively. Xbox's Cloud Gaming app has gone through a lot of changes that have made it a bit of a pain in the ass to use, and it had significant dropouts and whatnot, where third-party devices like that, I did not have as good of an experience on. And I remember talking to Micah about it, who's also a big Xbox player, and she was having issues. PS Portal has been so nice with its pick up and play ability, because originally it was just for me a remote play device. I pick it up and I turn on my console and I use it in a different room in my house. It started to experience some dropouts, but then the PlayStation Portal got this whole on update that was basically what it should have been at launch in a lot of ways, where now you can take games that are available in your PS library, and some titles have opted in, some have not, but a lot of new titles have opted in, where you can just literally turn on your Portal and immediately start streaming those games from your library, like to the device itself, not with the console on. So you can basically treat that Portal like a mobile PS5 in some way. This works way better than remote play. I have way less dropouts, and it just is so convenient, and I've used it so much. So that was already great. Then they added these quality of life improvements like a 1080p high quality mode. The image already looked awesome, and the screen was already a good enough size. So 1080p on this is sick. I've used it. Or I've used it and it's awesome. So what we got here is players can now select a 1080p high quality mode during remote play and cloud streaming. This new mode enables players to enjoy games at a higher bit rate compared to the default 1080p standard mode, providing a smooth and high fidelity experience. To enable the mode, go to quick menu, max resolution, and select 1080p high quality during remote play or cloud streaming. Now, what this can lead to, with my experience with just like the PS Portal in general, what this can lead to is a lot of dropping out. Like you'll start to see the screen like break up, think of a video buffering. That's basically what's happening. And so when you try to push those higher qualities, it's going to test your internet more, and it might drop down to a lower level. And that can be a little bit distracting, but I love that you can enjoy these games in like a higher bit rate here. They also refined the cloud streaming experience in some quality of life improvements, like an improved product detail page, where when you select stream on the product detail page of the game bundle, new UI will show up, allowing you to select a specific game from that bundle. Game invites, if you're actively streaming a supported title and receive a game invite, you now get a notification on screen. This was a big problem with the PS Portal. It's just like the notification system it was handled differently. Same thing with trophies, which they've enhanced as well. New trophy notifications now clearly display the trophy name and associated image when unlocked. Platinum trophies will also feature their special animation, bringing greater visibility and celebration to your achievements, and an improved search experience so that you can actually use the on-screen keyboard, which is available immediately when going into search. And they've also smoothed the onboarding experience. So if you don't have an account for PlayStation yet, getting started is now easier than ever with an improved UI and onboarding flow. You can quickly create an account and sign into your Portal by scanning the QR code. And so all this makes it easy to pick up and play. And this is like a cheap device. These updates for this device have been fantastic. So again, I'm like, damn, they're kind of cooking on the tech front. Then the weirdest one pops up. A PS3 system software update. 4.9. Why is the PS3 getting an update in 2026? They write here, as always, please always update your PS3 system to the latest version of system software. By updating, you could enjoy additional features, improved usability, and enhanced security. Please note, to play Blu-ray discs, your PS3 system needs a renewed Blu-ray player encryption key. Please update your PS3 system software to the latest version to renew the Blu player encryption key. And basically, you can see here, all of these updates have been system improvements for the performance. Nothing crazy. Signing in requires the device password. This was a horrible update. Anytime I tried to like switch around, I can't stand it. Just every time you got to like use the QR code and sign in. It makes returning to my PS3 after a while a pain in the ass. So the PS3 got an update. I'm like, okay, their tech teams are hitting like every SKU here. And then part of this that I wanted to talk about, this is a story from last month, is that Netflix was removed from PS3. And there were a lot of people bummed out about this because, yeah, you can see here, I just tried booting up Netflix on my PS3, and yeah, it does in fact give the message, which just says here, as it'll load in a second. Unfortunately, Netflix will be no longer available on this device after March 2nd. So RIP, it's gone now. Basically, people like this because they could watch their old shows in 4:3, and the PS3 supported that. And so it was pretty cool to have that, and unfortunately, it's gone. I know there's like 10 people who used it, but like, again, another update in the world of PS3 that I just thought was a little funny. Hopefully one day PlayStation adds like native PS3 support for some form of back compat to PlayStation 5. That'd be really great instead of just streaming those games. And then last but not least was this insider gaming report here that says that PlayStation is phasing out the PlayStation Network branding, which I found a bit interesting. Like, what do they get away with by dropping the network part of things? PlayStation will be dropping the PlayStation Network and PSN branding by September 2026. In an email sent to developers and seen by Insider Gaming, PlayStation will be dropping the PlayStation Network and PSN branding. It said that the change will be purely visual and is meant to properly capture the breadth of our evolving digital services. Here's the full email. We'd like to inform you that Sony Interactive Entertainment has strategically decided to phase out terms PlayStation Network and PSN across our platform in order to properly capture the breadth of our evolving digital services. What's changing and timeline? The upcoming changes are purely visual and not introduce any technical alterations to our offerings. To simplify and unify branding, the terms PlayStation Network and PSN will be phased out across all of SIE assets by September 2026. All features currently associated with PSN, including core network features such as friends, multiplayer, and trophies, will remain unaffected and available to players. You'll be notified ahead of changes coinciding with technical requirement checklists in the update to fall of 2026. Note that PS5 DevNet access is required to review the TRC documentation at that time. You'll need to align with the updated TRC and branding guidelines to ensure the removal of PSN instances from all future releases, assets, and eternal service interfaces. There's no name for the new network, according to Insider Gaming. It's a little strange that they're just deciding to kind of drop this. I wonder if because it might be just a conflict of like, there's PlayStation Now, there's PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Network, and are they trying to unify it and simplify it like they said here? Like, is there more than what meets the eye here? Like, is it just going to be called PlayStation Plus? Throw that into the mix of another PlayStation thing. I'm sure someone in the meeting room kind of went like, hey, guys, look how many we got. A little tough to keep track of here. And by simplifying it, it could indicate a push of some kind to get more people into that, what was once the PlayStation Network. But again, it's strange, right? Like, I'm not crazy, right? PSSR, PlayStation Portal, PS3 update in the same like week span. And then PSN dropping stuff. Like, they're clearly gearing up in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's really all building to something, but just a lot happening. A lot happening in the world of PlayStation on the tech front. Interesting to watch it all unfold. And again, just PlayStation, please give us the PS3 library on PS5. I'm begging you, man. Please. Chat, how are we feeling about this? PlayStation Ultimate, someone said in chat. That's a good one. PlayStation Ultimate would be funny. Why not? Just call it PlayStation Connect. Great for sports. I hope we get more PS Premium games. I need my retro slop. I do too, bro. That's the thing. I love what they're doing with the PS1 games, the PS2 games. Like, I love that they're accessible. PSP games, like, that's great. Bro, I want PS3. Like, I love the PS3. That library is so good, and so much of it is still trapped. One of the biggest exoduses from PS3 is now Metal Gear Solid 4. That was one of the biggest announcements they had at their State of Play. Yeah, I think you're on the money, Optimus. They're going to phase it out. Kind of PSN feels redundant. Just call it PlayStation Plus. Makes sense. But they're getting their ducks in a row. It's very interesting. Whew, what a return, man. What, 5 slop videos? 6? 5? 5. It's crazy. Anyway, that'll be the end of the slop for today. We'll wrap up and just hang out and chat for a little bit, guys. I need water. Your boy's on empty right now. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of PS3 love in the chat. PS3 is my baby. PS3 back compat would be huge. Cannot wait to play MGS4 again. Another reason why my PS3 is still hooked up. MGS4. Yeah, I've never played MGS4. I got to be honest. That's what I'm going to get to this year, though, because I already did 1, 2, and 3 in the last year. I'm going to play 4. I'm going to play, I think I'm going to play Peacewalker. Peacekeeper? Peacewalker this year. Are you going to get a review code for Mouse PI? I feel comfortable, Parker, saying I probably will. I feel pretty comfortable about that one. Yeah. There's some publishers where you kind of know, and they kind of make it clear to you. It doesn't happen often, but like I feel pretty comfortable saying I will be getting a review code for that one. I don't know when, but it feels pretty certain. So I can't wait for that. Based on my preview, I cannot wait. That game's going to be awesome. Mr. Matty reviews again. Yeah, wouldn't it be crazy if my return to reviews, like a traditional review, right? Like I've been doing impressions. I've been living and dying off impressions. It would, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say there haven't been reviews because like I reviewed Requiem, but like, wouldn't it be interesting if like when I finish the Outer Worlds 2 review, I'm like, okay, I'll review something soon. If my next actual review was Mouse PI for Hire, that'd be fucking crazy, dude. Hey, look, man, I can't complain. You guys show out. Like, of course I know, like, if I get the review codes, like, you know, there's more views in it, but, like, I can't complain when, like, you know, almost 200,000 people show up to, like, a impressions video on Crimson Desert when it's, like, the most talked about game right now. Like, I can't complain about that. I feel very lucky. So, review codes are appreciated, and they certainly make my life a little bit easier, and they are good for the viewers, but, like, you know, we're making do, so it's, you know, it's not a huge deal. But it's not something, I just want to be clear to the audience, it's not something I'm giving up on. It's just something that I'm kind of like, all right, like I'm going to keep trying, but you know, it's tough. Like I'm trying to get there's some games I'm trying to review that I'm just like, oh wait. Oh, never mind. We're good. I just cooked. I just cooked something into existence. Okay, I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy about something. It's not a huge game, but it's a Matty ass game. I won't say anymore. Does your love of physical games extend to 4K Blu-ray movies? They're worth it with the right TV. No, but don't want to open that can of worms, bro. I got 2 bookshelves full of games. The last thing I need is another Blu-ray collection or something like that. That's crazy. So yeah, like it doesn't extend to that. I have a love for movies on a deep level, but like I don't have like the physical connection because like the games are like a physical game is an experience. I'm gonna be like fucking Ted Cruz describing Texas Queso. I don't know if any of you have seen that video. It's one of my favorite videos on the internet, where I'm gonna give you this deep visceral bonding experience that's described through just me buying a product. But like buying a physical game, the smell, the wrapping, the unpackaging, the tabbing through the manual, the car ride home, whether it's as an adult driving home with it in the passenger seat or as a kid sitting in the passenger seat, reading through it and smelling those smells and with that long car ride home. It's an experience. I don't have that with a movie because it's not part of the launch. I see the movie in the theaters and I buy it afterwards and I rewatch it. So I'm with you. I get what you're saying, but my love does not extend to Blu-ray. Oh, Unsure Wolf says you got to at least grab Blade Runner. Hang on, bro. It's not Final Cut, but the wifey got me this for Christmas and I watched it over the holiday break. Wow. So cool to watch VHS tape in 2026. It was awesome. So how about that? Yeah, Optimus is right. Even chatting up the local game store clerk about how you're both excited. Like, gaming physicals is a more shared experience than I think movies. Movies are great. Blu-rays are sick. I've tried to collect some for Retro Rewind and do like the complete in box experience, and it worked. Like, it was fun, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. You know, I'm coping. It's not the same. I was watching Attack of the Clones on my Panasonic Q GameCube on my Toshiba CRT. It was glorious. That's sick. I love that. Aaron, you're right. Yeah, VCR players are tough to find. Yeah, like especially what I have here for Retro Rebound. It turned out to be a great purchase, but what I have is a TV with a VCR built in, which is like they've shot up in value, big time. Yeah, Parker, I'm going to see it this Friday. And I know nothing about the movie. I've just heard it's excellent, so I'm very excited to see that one. Gonna see it in IMAX. I don't have a 70 millimeters theater near me, unfortunately. Oh boy. Can we get an update on the defining Duke beanies? Yeah or no? Okay, so I don't have an update. The update is no update, unfortunately. I'm sorry you had the super chat to get that answer. But there's no update on it. So there wasn't like, I mean, there were some people in the comments that were like, hey dude, to be fair, you didn't market it well. And I think that's like fair and everything. But I don't like, I put it this way. Micah didn't react to it and Micah keeps an eye on those things. And since Micah didn't react, I'm assuming it's just not enough. So maybe one day, you know, but given winter, it's kind of phasing out. I don't know if people are going to want it. I don't know. I'm terrible with merch, but also like, again, it doesn't seem like something they want to do because the sales weren't as guaranteed. So it's okay. Like it's fine. Just that's unfortunately where it lies right now. Some people do want DD beanies. I just don't know. The problem is how much we have to order, to my understanding. I don't get involved in the merch and stuff. I'm just there to host a show. But the merch stuff, from what I understand, is like they order 100 of those. Like that's the minimum they can do. So they need to know that they can sell 100 of those. And it didn't seem like they were going to sell 100 of those. So yeah, Kimbo's right. The beanies got high guarded. They got high guarded. We just didn't market it well enough for you, Xbox. Yeah, we kind of had the Xbox moment. Like we treated it a little bit like what would the game be? Hellblade 2. We let social media do its thing. Oh, it didn't do enough. All right, no one's interested. I'll put in the word. I'll see what we can do. I'm particularly closed-minded about merch. There's a reason I don't have a merch shop. I think there's a level of self-absorption with some YouTubers and how they think like people are going to find the things that they think are sick to others. Like putting your personal, like if I fucking shoot me, if I put a MrMattyPlays shirt out that literally has like my logo on the center, it's like, you want to wear that in public, don't you? Bro, no, you fucking don't. No, you don't. Like, don't lie to yourself. I'll make something sick. I've talked about this before. My wife and I had this whole idea for like an entire clothing line. I'm not saying like I'm perfect, but I'm too creative for my own good in those instances. Maybe people want more simple, but for me, I'm like, it should be something cool, more elegant, that like, if you are repping quote Matty merch end quote, that it's like more streetwear. And so I'm not going to give you guys any teasers on that because I think one day we'll do it. I don't know when, but one day I think we'll do it. I really like a mixture of like street merch and gamer merch that's kind of subtle and elegant. Sometimes it's just like referencing something in game, but other times it's just like Uniqlo or something where it's like a subtle little logo. I like that stuff. That works really well, where you can kind of be a nerd and then like people will look at it and be like, oh, that's a cool shirt, but not really know what it is. Love that shit. Keeping the hope alive. Appreciate you, bro. Yeah, I do appreciate anyone who is actually sincerely interested in the beanies. Like, very, very kind. That a lot of people were like, oh shit, bro, I actually wanted one. But what I don't want to do is pressure Colin and Micah into buying the beanies and then be like, guys, please, please, please. And then they don't sell. And it's like, oh, great. Like my little like desires like of just getting these beanies made. Kind of like I pressured them into doing something that probably didn't make the most sense. So I'm trying to just show some restraint here, you know? Dude, these dogs, what the fuck is good with them? Well, it's 7:30 anyway. We've been live for how long? How long has it been? Almost 4 hours. Holy shit, dude! All right, let me go check on the dogs and stuff. Oh, we have a super chat. Any physical PC games in your library? I keep a disk drive for my PC for Starlancer, Freelancer, but I have Halo 2, Vista, Gears of War, Wolfenstein 09. Interesting cut there. Final Fantasy 7 and 8 on my shelf. I have Baldur's Gate 2, because the Baldur's Gate physical copies are sick. Like they're legit booklets. And then I've got Fallout 1. I have that one as well. So yeah, they're like, those are some sick ones. PC physical is sick. It's underrated. I just don't collect much of it because it's literally like shelfware to me. Like I really can't do anything with it. I don't have disk drives for my computer, especially the games I just mentioned. Like I have access to already. So there's that too. But it's cool to have those in my collection. Baldur's Gate was for a complete box experience on Retro Rebound. And then Fallout's because I love Fallout, of course. Anyway, guys, let me split because I got to check on these dogs because I know my wife's been holding it down. I want to make sure everything's all good because they bark at everything under the sun, as you can hear. So I walked them before the stream, so they should be good. But I'm going to go take care of that, get some dinner, and then play some Dragon's Dogma. Y'all have an absolutely excellent rest of your day. Thanks for being here, and I plan to be live again Friday. So we'll talk soon, but until then, be well.